Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. They wanted me to use the gavel. I still have a hard time using the gavel, so figured I'd just try to be as loud as I can be. I can be way louder. I used to be a coach, but I don't want to amplify that much, so I'll see. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. As you can see, Chair Credential is joining us via Zoom. And so I will chair today's meeting as well. With that said, I now reconvene the general session. As I mentioned yesterday, the commission members who participate remotely will need to disclose if any other individuals 18 years of age or older present in the room, the remote location, and the general nature of the member's relationship with any such individuals. Are there any such disclosures for members attending via Zoom?
I do not have any disclosure.
No disclosures.
I don't think we heard you, Heidi.
No disclosures.
Student Liaison Morrison?
No disclosures.
Thank you. Anybody else I'm missing? Thank you, commissioners. As a reminder, commissioners who are participating via Zoom must be visible at all times on camera. Please log off of Zoom if you need to leave the meeting and log in when you are ready to join the meeting. If you experience broadband or internet connectivity problems while participating in the meeting, that would be remedied by joining without video. You must announce the reason for your non-appearance when you turn off your camera. We will now take roll. Recording Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Annette Brown.
Here.
Catherine Williams Brown.
Here.
Jose Cardenas.
Present.
Michael Dilatorre. Deborah Erickson.
Present.
Anna Marie Francois. Quinn Shire.
Present.
Ralit. Ruben Mencias.
Here.
Jereen Powery. Andy Redfern.
Here.
David Simmons.
Here.
Richard Simpson.
Here.
Mike Torres.
Present.
Wang Yuzoff.
Here.
Before we start our regular business today, I would like to make an announcement. It is with great regret that I announce that this is Commissioner Catherine Williams Brown's last meeting. Commissioner Brown was appointed to the commission in September 2014 as an ex officio member representing the California Community Colleges. Throughout her years of service to the commission, she has consistently shown her enthusiasm and a commitment to the education of California's children. Her experience and knowledge has made her a valued colleague on the commission. Kate, as a member of the commission, your contributions will be remembered by all of us who have had the opportunity to work with you. We wish you the very best in future endeavors.
You all have some words to say when it's time for my report. I'm not going to change that.
So item 2D is the chair's report. Chair Credential.
Good morning, all. Good morning, colleagues. Belated Juneteenth greetings and happy Pride Month. I'm sorry not to be joining you in person today, especially as this is the last meeting for Commissioner Kate Brown. Kate, a special note of gratitude to you for your many years of service and advocacy on behalf of young children and their teachers, and for your sustained support of collaboration between 2- and 4-year institutions regarding educator preparation. I will miss you dearly. As we end another school year, I want to once again thank each of you for what you do every day for your students, their educators, and family and community members. The word unprecedented once again describes this past year, and it has certainly been overused in recent years. But yet here we are again, closing the school year during such tumultuous times. And still our educators, leaders, and community members continue to show up, care about their students, and to borrow a phrase from Cosby, Stills, and Nash, continue to teach our children well. To the teachers, counselors, school leaders, community members, and to our student liaison who serve on the commission, I am so grateful for your dedication, time, and high-quality work on behalf of educators, students, and their families. And to our higher education and community partners, Thank you for all that you do to support the next generation of educators. I'm so proud to serve alongside of you. To our district and state leaders, your unwavering commitment and actions to protect and educate each and every student, regardless of ability, background, how they identify, immigration status, or zip code, is greatly appreciated. And finally, to Executive Director Sandy and her commission team, thank you once again for your tireless efforts and high-quality work on behalf of California students and educators. Once again, what a year this has been. The end of the school and academic year is not only a time to celebrate the accomplishments of our students and their educators, but also provides us with an opportunity for reflection on the past year as we look forward to the coming academic year. As you've heard me say before, I try and approach this moment and our work with resilience and hope, but it is sometimes difficult given our current context. Patty Davis, daughter of President Ronald Reagan, recently wrote in an op-ed when she was reflecting on what her father might think about the current administration. She wrote, "We are living through a period of extreme narcissism. The attitudes of the present administration are contagious. If unkindness, lack of empathy, even cruelty abound at the highest levels, they too easily seep into the rest of our culture. It takes some deep determination to remember that there's a different way, that we can coexist respectfully and use empathy as our watermark." So in this moment, I choose the path of respect and empathy, and as I often do, I choose hope and inspiration to continue our important work together. As summer break is here, I wish you all time for these 3 R's: reflection, recharging, and resetting for the next year. Thank you. Executive Director Sandy?
Before we go, I just wanted to check in with Commissioner Pavry. Do you have any disclosures?
No disclosures, thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Marquita, for that very inspiring opening for us today. I appreciate your call to action. So I'm going to keep my report fairly brief. Today, we have a packed agenda for you today. We're halfway through our year with this meeting in terms of 6 meetings. This is our 3rd. We're halfway there and making significant progress on the goals that we articulated at our first meeting of the year. And today is some milestones are coming before you that are exciting for the staff to bring, and we're looking forward to some robust discussion. I wanted to make one introduction. We have a new member for our grants team, and her name is Adriana Cervantes Gonzalez. Will you please stand? Thank you so much. Dr. Cervantes Gonzalez began her career as a substitute teacher in 1999 and has since served in a variety of PK through 16 roles, including school counselor, site administrator, lead faculty member, program manager. As a lead faculty member at 2 CSU campuses, she supported the preparation and mentoring of pre-service teachers, teacher leaders, and aspiring educational leaders while helping bridge the connection between theory and practice. Most recently, Adriana served as program manager for residency programs at the California Center on Teaching Careers within the Tulare County Office of Education. In this county-level leadership role, she supported the expansion of teacher residency and school counselor residency pathways across the region and state, helping address educator workforce needs, increase access to high-quality preparation programs, and strengthen partnerships between local education agencies and institutions of higher education. For the past decade, Adriana's work has focused on advancing educator pathways, strengthening workforce development initiatives, and cultivating a diverse and effective educator workforce in the Central Valley of California. Welcome, Adriana, to our team, and we look forward to you being at the table. This is my report.
Agenda item 2F. Do any commissioners have items to report? Commissioner Brown.
I'm going to have some things to say. The first thing I want to do, I have 4 items. 3 are our ongoing priority areas with the California Community College Chancellor's Office and collaboration, as well as connections across the early childhood and education professional communities. and then just a final statement. So I'll try to be coherent here. Since the last briefing here in April, there's been no new programmatic or policy updates to report on. But the Chancellor's Office also continues to advance and try to operationalize some shared initiatives that we're doing. One is the California Community College Baccalaureate degree programs. There's ongoing efforts, both legislatively and within the systems, to scale some high quality workforce aligned programs with a focus on expanding access for working adults, rural and place-bound students, sounding a little bit like teachers and education systems. And in the education sector, we're looking at building apprenticeships, which I've mentioned before here, because our community college is doing it. We've also been continuing to collaborate with the CSU Chancellor's Office with the PAVE toolkit, with a community of practice expected to launch sometime later this summer. And finally, there's an ECE EDU demonstration project. We're in the phase 2 design of it, trying to plan efforts to incorporate regional and statewide recommendations into the community colleges. So the Chancellor's Office really looks forward to working collaboratively with all the stakeholders to advance the shared goal of developing a high quality education workforce. Central to this effort is ensuring that Californians have equitable access to high quality educator preparation pathways, including the child development permits and teaching credentials, through a full range of accredited higher education institutions that serve the state's diverse communities and workforce needs. As the largest system of higher education in California and the nation, serving more than 2 million students annually, the California community colleges are uniquely positioned to expand access to these opportunities while helping the state's growing workforce demands. And then I just wanted to highlight a few of the connections that have occurred because they will keep going. Both I'll be on the side and I'll also be alongside. The connections that we've made, there are several, so these are just quick notes. The Academic Senate of the Community College System is doing in July in Sacramento, Curriculum is Advocacy Institute. The Department of Education, we work with a lot, and their P23 Early Learning and Ed Partners Inclusion Work Group has just put out their regular letter, which is really informative. The National Association of Community College Teacher Ed Partners, we call that NACTEP, but here we call it CCCTEP, Triple CTEP, is doing a leadership network. The Early Math Project is collaborating with Stanford's Development Research in Early Math Education. And also the Early Care and Education Pathways to Success, it's a big name, ESEPS, that supports apprenticeship, just had their national conference in San Diego, which is great, having it here in California. The Early Childhood Mentor Program is working under the auspices of the Department of Social Services and trying to connect up regularly with our work here in order to support early childhood mentor leaders with the student teachers that work from doing their student teaching in community colleges. And finally, but certainly not last, Tri-CECE and PEACH continue to be groups that we've all heard from the community college system to advocate for teacher education. I just wanted you to know that tonight, I don't know if I'll get there on time, but our San Mateo County Office of Ed is hosting an early learning pathways and child development permit support community of practice so that we can help the people in our county get access to these services. So that's my report. And then just a few words, since this is my last meeting. Over the years, so much progress has been made, and I really have so much appreciation and gratitude to Mary and our whole commission for being willing to listen to me every single time I come to talk about early childhood and try to raise up those institutions and people that do that work so that they too can be considered professionals and are educating the younger citizens of our state. So we're also expanding the voice on the commission through a deliberate ECE public member, which I think will be great. And I'm going to have to read this so I don't cry. In closing, it has been an honor to serve on the Commission of Teacher Credentialing. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to work alongside dedicated colleagues committed to strengthening our educator workforce in the state. So grateful for the support and leadership of Executive Director Mary Sandy and the collaboration and shared commitment across all our partners, every single one of you, to improve preparation pathways, expand access, and to support the success of children who are also students, also our adult students, all our learners across the state, and the teachers who get prepared and do the work. So you can be sure I'll try to be the voice of early education as a member of the public and as a professor in the California Community College system. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. It's been great being here. I owe you an apology because that was a very long report. I know you're trying to keep it short.
Other commissioners, I believe I have Commissioner Pavri.
Thank you. First of all, sending a really warm virtual hug to you, Kate. I'm sorry I can't be there to say goodbye, but we will see you soon. And thank you for all of your work with the commission. I have two quick announcements. The first one, we're really excited. We finally, in the state of California, have 2 registered teacher apprenticeships. One with Tulare County, which is partnering with both Cal Poly Humboldt and Fresno State. So we're excited to see this pathway unfold. The other apprenticeship is with Santa Clara County. And so again, looking forward to more teacher apprenticeships across the state of California. And I also wanted to share the CSU, the Department of Educator and Leadership Programs. Kate, you will be happy. You probably already know. We've started a new Spark Hub. Spark stands for System-Wide Partnership for Advancing Research and Knowledge in Early Childhood. This hub really emerged from our director, Dr. Hilary Seitz, in partnership with a host of faculty. And it is going to bring together CSU faculty, administrators, students, along with education partners from across the state. We already have a lot of advocacy groups, community college partners, folk who are just really interested in early childhood education in the state of California. The focus of the hub is to collaborate across 3 areas, one being research and research that informs policy and practice. The second is curriculum, pathways, and practices. We've developed curriculum that's freely available on Canvas for literacy instruction, for quantitative reasoning instruction, in the process of developing a lot more curricular resources. Again, that will be available to anybody in the state who chooses to use it. And the third focus is on knowledge sharing to bring the early learning community together by building collaboration and capacity. So we're excited about the ways in which the Spark Hub will strengthen the early learning workforce and enhance outcomes for our youngest and most diverse learners in the state. I will make sure that Haiju and Rhonda have the link to our website that has a host of resources so you can read more about it. Thank you.
Commissioner Pavri. Are there other commissioners that would like to report? Commissioner Francois.
Thank you. First, I want to express my gratitude for being what Bayard Rustin used to call an angelic troublemaker for community colleges and early childhood education. I have learned so much from you around this table, and I know that the troublemaking that you will continue to do is going to just get bigger and bolder as time goes on. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your collegiality, and thank you for your friendship. Woo! See how I got through that, folks? Good morning, everybody. I want to begin by thanking Chair Shire and Executive Director Sandy for lifting up both the progress and the continued urgency of California's educator workforce context. I will not repeat what Chair Shire so eloquently reminded of us. The University of California shares that sense of momentum and responsibility as the state sees promising movement in teacher preparation and credentialing. UC is focused on what comes next. As collaboratively, we strengthen the pipeline, improve preparation, support retention, and ensure that statewide workforce challenges and strategies are grounded in evidence, equity, and the lived reality of schools and community. Because after all, these are human beings we're talking about here. From a UC perspective, our priorities remain clear. First, we're focused on and diversifying the pipeline into teaching. UC teacher education programs, Cal Teach, and undergraduate pathways are helping students explore teaching earlier, especially in STEM and other shortage fields. And we're also working really hard with our district and community partners to expand residency, apprenticeships. We're taking your lead, Shireen, and grow your own models that make teaching more financially accessible and more closely connected to local workforce needs. Second, we are committed to the quality of preparation. And that means not only producing more teachers, but to prepare educators who are ready to support multilingual learners, neurodiverse learners, students with disabilities, and young people navigating an increasingly complex academic and social condition. And third, and for me most importantly at this moment in my career, the UC continues to contribute to statewide and national policy through research, public engagement, and collaboration with our CSU, AICCU, and community college partners. A recent example of that, Commissioner Poppy, there she is. A recent example of that was our participation in Washington Week, which for the first time was co-sponsored by the American Association of Colleges of Teacher Education, the National Center for Teacher Residency, and Deans for Impact. Now, I will say that our California team, we were small, but we were mighty at Washington Week. And our team included our dear Commissioner colleague, Shireen Poverty, former AICCU Commissioner Kimberly White-Smith, Dr. Karen Escalante, immediate past president of the California Council on Teacher Education and CSU faculty, and over a dozen home scholars. And this is what really gave me hope, because home scholars are graduate students in education who are part of AACTE's National Leadership Pipeline, focused on mentorship, professional development, scholarship, and advancing equity in the education profession. We're not going to be here forever, those of us around this table. The home scholars are the next generation of angelic troublemakers that are going to do this work and take it to places that we will probably never even imagine. So seeing them at Washington Week and engaging with them was both refreshing, inspiring, and just gave me hope for the future. So our collective presence at Washington Week was an important reminder that educator preparation leaders must make our collective voice heard. You've heard me say this a number of times, but our power is not in individual institutions or in individual faculty, it's in our collective work, particularly in this national moment. California's institutions of higher education have an important role to play in establishing ourselves as trusted partners, bringing research, practice, and policy together in ways that help policymakers understand what's really happening in school, what aspiring and current educators need, and what investments will actually strengthen the educator workforce. So my call to action is that we continue to think about ourselves and act in ways that strengthen the collective rather than silo our work, or worse, silo and create and advance is the right word to describe it, this sense of competition among our individual segments and institutions. I've been around long enough that to see what the scarcity mentality has done to the to our own institution, but also to our efforts around educator workforce development. Let's stop that. A couple of examples very quickly. I see you looking at me. Recent work from the UCLA Center for the Transformation of Schools through the California Educator Diversity Project is one example of the contribution that we can make around bringing research, practice, and policy to bear in the interest of young people and the adults who serve them. The research of PTS provides important evidence about shifts in California's teacher workforce, including changes in experience, credentialing, subject area staffing, and teacher diversity. This kind of work helps all of us move from individual anecdotes to evidence, and from evidence to better policy. I also want to lift up the UC-CSU Collaborative for Neuroscience, Diversity, and Learning as a major statewide accomplishment. And now, through Array of Learning, the collaborative is making evidence-based resources available to teacher educators, candidates, and practitioners across California. During Washington Week, Representative Alma Adams from North Carolina reminded us that education is infrastructure. Education is infrastructure. And Array of Learning is exactly the kind of infrastructure California needs. Research translated into practical tools, aligned with credentialing expectations, and accessible to educators across institutions and region. In the next phase, UC will continue to lean into the intersection of research, practice, and policy. We will continue preparing educators, supporting educator preparation faculty, generating actionable research, and partnering with districts, counties, and state agencies to address California's educator workforce needs. It has been an honor and privilege to do this work with you again for another year. And I just wish for all of us that we meet this moment, we work through this moment, and we get through this moment with humanity, with dignity, and with our whole selves, reminding ourselves that the young people of the future, for all of us, and the educators that serve them are the ones that are going to guide them along their way.
Other commissioners that would like to respond? Lotus?
Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning, commissioners. I'll make this very brief. But before I start this, thank you so much, Commissioner Brown, for your service to the commission and to the state of California. Your advocacy for students and educators is incredible and admirable, and truly appreciate you. Updates from the department. National Board for the Professional Teaching Standards have closed their application period for the 25-26 year. The subsidy side of the program awarded 1,429 applicants, and the incentive side of the program received 2,903 applications, which are currently under review. The Educator Effectiveness Funds Block Grant provides professional learning to promote educator equity, quality, and effectiveness. All reports for this past year are due on or before September 30th. All funds must be spent on or before June 30th in just 4 days. This year, school districts will provide a final report on or before the 30th. In line with the state's many investments in literacy and the priorities of Superintendent Thurmond, the department's statewide literacy office invites educators, leaders, and families to explore the building blocks of California's comprehensive approach to literacy and biliteracy. A series of webinars will be conducted in August. And in those webinars, participants will learn how the alignment translates into effective classroom practices that strengthen teaching and improving student literacy outcomes. On to curriculum, where the English language arts, English language development follow-up adoption is well underway. We trained over 220 State Board of Education appointed reviewers in person in Sacramento at the end of April. And we will be reconvening them for 2 weeks at the end of July, just next month, in order to go over their evaluations of the 72 instructional material programs that are left to be reviewed. Last but not least, to help support the state in implementation of AB 2927 and the personal finance graduation requirement, the department hosted a webinar entitled Launching Your Personal Finance Course for teachers and school districts planning a personal finance course aligned to the requirements of statute. This was just the first in a series of webinars to introduce the personal finance curriculum guide that was adopted by the State Board of Education. Approximately 6 more webinars will be conducted in the fall. Those are all my updates. Thank you for the time.
Other commissioners that would like to make a report? Commissioner Erickson?
Kate, thank you for your service and your undying commitment to children. And hopefully someday I will be able to work with you again in promoting universal preschool for children and making sure that every child has a great start to begin kindergarten in California. So thank you for that service. PLNU as Associate Dean of Advanced Programs has been working with San Diego County Office on preparing a series of events for PPS educators across the county on billing services so that schools know how to bill services and hire additional social workers, psychologists, counselors. And we're hoping to take that show on the road across the state to help other counties and districts know how to access that funding. So be on the lookout for that. AICCU organizations continue to maintain strong Cal TPA pass rates, with most candidates passing all cycles by the end of their program. An example of this is Chapman University's Atala College of Educational Studies. For the second year in a row, they've had 100% of their teacher candidates pass the Cal TPA exam prior to graduation. AICCU institutions are particularly proud of those who passed both cycles prior to finishing their student teaching assignment and want to congratulate all the recent graduates on successful completion of their credential program. And along with that, this has been a month of reflection for me, and our Associate Director of Credentialing and Compliance put together a visual that showed how many credentials just PLNU alone has recommended in my 13 years at Point Loma. And that number was approximately 7,400 credentials. And it made me think of the impact of the AICCU institutions that are making in the K-12 arena, but also our CSU and UC colleagues in preparing the California educated workforce. It's been a joy to see the impact of all the candidates in the communities they serve, impacting students and families across the state. I've often thought of the role CTC plays in including, guiding, and supporting us. And none of those 7,400 credential recommendations would have been possible without a great team at PLNU, but also the support of the commission and all of you. So thank you. And I very much look forward to continued work representing the AICCU colleagues and universities that prepare half of the California educator workforce.
Sure. The commissioners that would like to report? Fine. I'm just going to take this moment really quick to talk about first Kate, right? Mr. Brown. When I first came on the commission, she was one of the first people that I met in the hotel lobby, very welcoming. And we started talking about basketball. Didn't know that she was such a fan, but her same enthusiasm that she has as a fan in basketball, she has about our students. And she carries that everywhere she goes, and people recognize that because she's in it for our students. And she doesn't ever want us to forget our youngest students. And so I want to say thank you for always reminding us. Thank you for your constant enthusiasm, both in life, right? Because your humanity spreads across this table, but also outside of this table. So thank you. And this leads into, I think, exactly this conference I attended. I attended the College Board Native American Student Advocacy Institute. As school counselors, we work with all students. And what we do is we try to find the right spaces where maybe a student needs to see a social worker, little more intense services, or maybe they need to see a school psychologist. Maybe they need to see the school nurse. So we're always looking to coordinate services. Our role and function is to try to find or eliminate barriers or gaps. And as we're doing that, we want all of our students to succeed. But we also know that some of our students need a little bit more assistance. And so for us to attend this conference on Native American students, the Native American Student Advocacy Institute is an annual College Board sponsored conference dedicated to improving educational outcomes for Native American, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander students. It brings together educators, tribal leaders, advocates, and students to address systemic challenges, build national networks, and close the educational opportunity gaps. They focus on college access and readiness, on incorporating Native traditions and culture into education, supporting mental health and wellness for Indigenous youth, and preparing our students for transition from tribal colleges to predominantly white institutions. And at this conference, there was this entire concept of this collectivism and working together, and also this concept of relatives. I think everyone I met either talked to each other as an auntie, as an uncle. I know in my own culture, everyone's a tío or tía. And so it was throughout the entire conference. Anybody that you met was family. And it was this national network that's been going on for 18 years. Mind you, it's the first time I've ever attended this conference, but it's been going on for 18 years of this collective community coming together to focus on our Indigenous populations. And what I learned in this, that, and I think it's something that I've incorporated for a long time, but this concept of treating everyone, our students, our educators, the people around this table, people in the commission, people you meet on the street, as a relative. If you treated them that way, you might treat them a lot kinder. You might push them a little bit more to help them and support them in ways that they need. So I think it's important as we reflect as this year has gone by, as we go through these tumultuous times, as we continue to look for hope and inspiration, that we don't forget that we need to recognize all of our strengths. And back to what Commissioner Francois is, this collectivism. We have to continue to honor our elders and also the wisdom that they bring, but also this collective wisdom that we all bring from our youngest students. I think sometimes we think, we're teaching them, but in reality, I think they're teaching us. And just channeling, I learned in this conference that sometimes we have a lot of emotions, angry emotions, and sometimes it comes out in our own children, right? When we have our behaviors, but it's how do we channel that emotion to do something positive, right? How do we channel our emotions to continue to bring hope and inspiration? And so I want to leave you with all of this. I want to leave you with this is that as we continue this work together. You're not alone. You're never alone. Look beside you, look in front of you, look around you, pay attention that people are willing to help and people want to make a difference. So thank you very much for continuing to come to the commission, for supporting, for engaging with us. I know that we're going to continue to do this work together. Thank you. With that said, I would like to turn it over to see if we have any student or any liaisons reports. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you so much for all of your reports. I was really touched and inspired, especially talking about collectivism and the importance of our work together. I'd like to share several highlights from the May meeting of the State Board of Education that have direct implications for students, educators, in the preparation of our California's teaching workforce. So Portrait of a Learner was adopted. The board unanimously adopted California's new Portrait of a Learner, establishing a statewide vision for the knowledge, skills, and dispositions we hope every California graduate develops. The competencies emphasize academic mastery, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, civic engagement, adaptability, and lifelong learning. While this is not a new accountability measure, it provides an important framework that can help align curriculum, instruction, assessment, and ultimately educator preparation around the broader skills students need for success in college, careers, and civic life. These are some updates to the California School Dashboard. The board approved several significant improvements to California's accountability system. Support for English learners. So reclassified English learners will now be included as an additional level within the ELP, or English Learner Progress Indicator, for long-term English learners, providing a more complete picture of student progress. Clear report of student achievement. The dashboard will now use the term distance from proficiency instead of distance from standard, making assessment results easier for families and educators to understand. The dashboard will also display trends across all student performance levels in English language arts, math, and science, giving schools a richer understanding of student growth over time rather than solely relying on proficiency rates. An action that I was pleased to move on are the updates to the dashboard language from clear credential to fully credentialed and properly assigned. This change better reflects what families and our community members want to know, whether students are being taught by educators who are both fully prepared and appropriately assigned to the subjects they teach. College and career indicator enhancements, several updates, strength and recognition of meaningful student experiences that prepare them for life beyond school. We approved high-quality work-based learning experiences, including internships, student enterprises, and simulated work-based learning as recognized measures of the CCI. The state seal of civic engagement will, as an approved college career indicator measure, it's a plus measure, recognizing civic learning and community engagement. Expanded recognition of international baccalaureate coursework and Cambridge international programs, and the inclusion of the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, as an additional measure within the leadership military science pathway. Together, these changes broaden the way students can demonstrate readiness after graduation while recognizing multiple pathways to success. And lastly, I would be remiss to not express my gratitude, my sincere gratitude to Commissioner Brown for your tireless advocacy and an unwavering commitment to early childhood education. And as a representative of the community college system, your persistence, expertise has kept important work of VCE at the forefront and has benefited educators and students across the state. And I thank you for the time that you and I have shared space. I've always learned something, have had some good laughs. And when I am in person at our next meeting, your presence will definitely be missed. And I hope that we stay in touch and that our paths cross again. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any other liaisons? All right. I now recess the general session and move to the certification committee. Commissioner Simmons, will you please convene the committee?
I now convene the certification committee, and the committee has one item before it today. Item 3A is the assignment monitoring sanctions system of identity support and improvements. And this item will be presented by Aaron Henderson, Ann Harris, Jonna Barlupi, and this is a action item. So Ms. Barlupi, please begin.
All right, good morning, commissioners. There. Okay, sorry. Good morning, commissioners. I am Dr. Barlupi, analyst in the assignment monitoring program, and I will be presenting with Erin Henderson, the Deputy Director of the Division of Licensure Certification, and Harris, the Senior Licensing Manager of the Assignment Monitoring Regulations Program. We're here to present item 3A, Assignment Monitoring Sanctions, System of Identification, Support, and Improvement. Before we start, let's briefly review what prompted the development of the Commission's Assignment Monitoring Sanctions Program. In 2024, the State Auditor's Office conducted an audit of Highlands Community Charter and Technical Schools, and in June 2025, released the report with their findings. The report included a recommendation directing the Commission to promulgate regulations to implement sanctions for schools that consistently misassign educators. Thus far, the Commission has submitted the mandatory responses to the State Auditor's Office at the 60-day and 6-month due dates, providing updates on our progress towards adoption of the sanction regulations.
And since the Commission received the auditor's recommendation, it has moved swiftly and approved multiple facets of the program. In December, this body approved a concept focus on supporting school food training. In the April meeting, staff proposed details of the program, including utilizing a targeted approach to training and determining sanctions based on a proportion of uncorrected misassignments to all assignments at school. Most facets of the plans were approved to these items. However, this agenda item builds on and refines previous proposals. To review, this is what has been approved prior to the meeting. The program centerpiece is training, which will be delivered via e-learning software to increase scheduling flexibility for participants. It will be differentiated by school type so that those in, for example, an elementary school would only receive content that is related to their setting. As well, it not only focuses on how to assign educators appropriately, but how to use various legal correction options if no appropriate educator is available. Finally, the plan allows for this piece to be leveraged. First, through the training, though required for some legally responsible, those individuals can nominate their credentialing staff to ensure school-wide expertise. And second, once developed, it will be available to the entire field, which encourages statewide expertise. The Commission also considered how intervention thresholds should be determined, and through reviewing a combination of statewide data and education partner feedback, decided that only uncorrected misassignments should be drivers for intervention, not vacancies or corrected misassignments. Additionally, that identification should be considered proportionally through a comparison of misassignments to appropriate assignments. And finally, that a reasonable threshold for mandatory training is when 25% of all educator assignments are misassigned to the school. However, last meeting, this body also considered whether those schools that fell within the 10 to 25% proportion of misassignments should also be subject to some intervention. Discussion also centered around ensuring adequate reporting and public noticing was memorialized in regulations, and it remained undecided on whether or not school board members should be required to complete mandated training when a school they oversee is identified. After reviewing and analyzing the feedback from various education partners, elements fell into place so that staff could package all these facets into a cohesive program, which is the Assignment Monitoring System of Identification, Support, and Improvement. The system will provide support to all of California public schools at an appropriate level based on the percentage of assignments that are misassignments at their school. Schools will not only receive tiered support, but again, differentiated training based on the school type and level. The system is structured around training, public noticing, and governing board notification. We've already discussed training at length. The additional components include reporting and public noticing. The Commission will notice those legally responsible for assignments when a school exceeds a certain misassignment reporting threshold. And additionally, the Commission will provide reporting to the public through established platforms like the Assignment Dashboard. And the final component is governing board reporting. Though governing board members were identified as legally responsible for educator assignments and previous items, the proposed system of identification and support would not require them to take assignment training. However, the proposed reporting structure would require school board members to be informed when the school agency reaches specific misassignment thresholds. And staff would just like to note here that wherever possible, LEAs may leverage existing reporting requirements, including any LCFF reporting that may cover plans for improvement of educator misassignments
to develop their board reports so that their efforts are not completed. The system is structured into 3 tiers. Schools in each tier are supported through the training program regardless of assignment. However, as misassignment proportions rise, support escalates from offered to suggested to required. As well, schools that will have assignment proportions reported on the Commission's data dashboard. Tier 1 is for those schools under 10% proportionally misassigned, and these schools will have voluntary access to all training for any individual interested in broadening their education knowledge. The next tier, tier 2, is for schools with proportional misassignments above 10% and below 45%. The assignment monitoring program will send these schools notice outlining their misassignment percentage and recommending that those legally responsible for assigning educators take the training, though it will not be mandatory. And these schools will have to report to their governing board on their status as an information item. And the third and final tier is for schools with 25% or more of their assignments misassigned. This tier, the school site administrator and a district superintendent responsible for assigning educators must complete required training. The individuals are also able to nominate credentialed staff to take the training should they feel it is beneficial to their agency. And finally, these schools must work with their monitoring authority and present a plan for improvement to their district governing board for action or approval. And please note that there is an agenda insert in this item, and that was done to include verifying that charter schools governing board also means the school's charter board. So in these cases, the school has to report to the district or county, depending on their authorizer, and also their charter governing, if applicable.
We recognize the importance of providing training that's catered to best support the school in their assignment efforts. And it was clear based on feedback from education partners that training should be targeted based on the school type to ensure that the topics that are covered are relevant to assignments that are typically found in that school. The projected training modules will include elementary, middle, and high schools, alternative schools, K through 12 schools, special education schools, and small or rural schools. Each of these school types include unique assignment flexibilities and challenges that can be addressed more fully in dedicated modules. Additionally, an abridged module will be available for governing board members to provide an understanding of assignment laws more broadly in their role. While the rest of the modules will be required based on sanction thresholds and school types, the governing board training will be available to those who are interested but not mandated by the commission. If the commission approves the proposed language as written with no substantial changes, staff will move forward and notice the public and the Office of Administrative Law, which will begin the 45-day public comment period. At the conclusion of the 45-day comment period, if there are no comments received, staff will continue by submitting to the Office of Administrative Law for approval. If the commission approves the language as written and no comments are received during the 45-day comment period, then the regulatory addition could be effective sometime in November at the very earliest. As well, assignment staff will procure software and begin development of the program with the goal of having it ready for launch at the end of the 2027 monitoring cycle. If substantial changes are needed, either due to the commission choosing not to approve this language as written today, or due to public comments requesting substantial changes be made to the language, then staff will draft language to reflect that divergent direction and provide an updated proposal for review at a future commission meeting. As mentioned, the program is proposed to launch after the 26-27 monitoring data is finalized, which will result in commission staff noticing entities that meet the thresholds in early 2028, and all of the intervention actions outlined in the proposed regulations would be completed in 2028 within the timelines that are provided in the regulations. 1 year after the program implementation, staff will return to the commission to report initial outcomes and to assess effectiveness of the program. In conclusion, staff recommends the commission approve the proposed language in the agenda insert. Please note the language
was provided in the item, but the insert includes updates necessary to be responsive to public comments. That concludes our presentation.
1 second. I just also wanted to add the number of schools affected. Important to this item, that in tier 3, it would be 144 schools affected. That is contained within 9 districts. And then in tier 2, it would be 406 schools affected within 188 districts. And I think on one of the previous slides, you can see the percentage. In tier 3, that's 1% of schools. And thank you. And then in tier 2, that is 3.6% of schools. Thank you for that.
I think you were also going to find the percentage that were charters versus.
Yes, in tier 3, 45% of the schools affected are charter schools and 55% are traditional, which is an imbalance if you consider the charters are 10%. That concludes our presentation, and we're happy to take questions.
We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raised hand icon. If participating through Zoom, or pressing *9, if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker.
Jessica Sacco, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Jessica Sacco, and I'm calling in on behalf of Children Now. I refer you to the letter submitted on behalf of Children Now and several other member organizations of the LCFF Equity Coalition on this item. We appreciate the meaningful improvements in the revised proposal, the new Tier 2 intervention structure, governing board notification, improvement planning for the highest need schools, and public reporting through commission dashboards. This is real progress towards a more proactive supportive system. 3 issues remain unresolved, and we ask the commission to address them before finalizing. First, governing board capacity. Although I will note, I appreciate staff sharing that a module will be made available for governing board members as presented in this item today. However, notification alone does not ensure oversight. Boards approve assignment decisions under Education Code Section 35035, yet the proposal gives them no way to build, well, actually, I'm going to amend that. It does give them a way to build knowledge. So strike that. We urge the commission to develop, to require that training for Tier 3 schools, and appreciate you making it available statewide as a prevention option. Secondly, regarding Tier 2, training should be required and not just recommended. 10% of uncorrected misassignments is objectively high, and the field has recommended it be the threshold for required action. Because the intervention is supportive rather than punitive, requiring it gives schools earlier help before problems deepen. Third, strengthen transparency with annual intervention report identifying Tier 2 and Tier 3 schools and summarizing statewide trends, making this information accessible to families, advocates, and communities. These changes would ensure students have access to fully prepared educators. Thank you.
Fred Kaminsky.
Good morning, Chair Greenwich-Shire, Dr. Sandy, and Commissioners. Saret Kaminsky on behalf of the Association of California School Administrators. I want to start by thanking the Commission for starting with training in this item and for meeting with ACSA to refine the overall structure of the thresholds. Thank you. However, at this time, we recommend the Commission pause on submitting the draft regulations from the insert until more review has been undertaken. While the insert reflects further refinement from the original 3 item, and we appreciate the Commission responding in real time to written feedback, the draft regulations would still benefit from more review from practitioners, particularly those representing both charter schools and charter authorizers. A greater understanding of the composition of the schools that fall within the 20 would also be beneficial. Where are they in the state? Are they predominantly small and rural? How many are charter schools? And are the misassignments happening at the elementary or secondary level? And which credentials are misassigned? Additionally, some of the initial comments back to ACSA are stating confusion on why a district superintendent would be taking trainings for a charter school issue, and a need for added clarity of the roles and responsibilities of the charter school governing board in relationship to district superintendents in general. The commission has had an expeditious response to the audit, and there is no doubt that you have taken the audit report seriously, sought feedback, and further refined the proposal. There is a way to thread the needle with a need for responsiveness while simultaneously ensuring regulations are sound in the field. AXA believes the 2-week timeline from the posting of the original item and the 2-day posting of the updated regs in the insert is simply not enough time to solicit substantial comment from the field. We are also anticipating extensive changes to law governing charter schools in the budget bills, and it would be prudent to ensure these draft regs are aligned to any new oversight structures and timelines that come out in next weeks. In closing, I want to reiterate some of the points I made in our previous AXA letters and testimony from December and April, which is Highlands misassignments were an extreme outlier, and there's been a series of corrective actions taken since the report was published. AXA believes the CTC's audit report should also acknowledge all the other systematic existing safeguards, oversight, and reporting happening statewide before undertaking sanctions for all LEAs. And with that, I thank you for your consideration.
Saret, before you go, would you say again the list of data that you wanted? Because I think some of those things commissioners asked for at the last commission meeting also.
Thank you, Commissioner. Where are they in the state? Are they predominantly small and rural? How many are charter schools? Where are the misassignments happening? Secondary level, and which credentials are predominantly misassigned?
So that would include like special ed also. So
Right.
Elementary, secondary, or special ed.
CTE.
I'm happy to address that now if you like. So one of the things to note, I think, is that we are using test data from a previous year to kind of give a proof of concept to you all. So we are hesitant to provide significant details about specific schools because we don't know that those schools will actually be sanctioned if the program's approved and when we start our first year of data. A lot has changed between 2024, 2025, and when we will likely have these regulations enacted and when we see what the outcomes are for those school sites. But we do have some preliminary data that we're happy to share with you, specifically for the breakdown of rural versus suburban and urban. It's looking at about a 44% breakdown of rural districts that would be impacted. And if that would include about 56% that are suburban and urban. And so some of those are not just districts, some of those are county offices of education because they are charter authority. They have the monitoring authority for charter schools and they are the authorizer for charter schools that are identified in the list. As well, can you tell me more of the data points?
Are there parts of the state where the problem is more endemic than other parts of the state?
We're really not seeing that. We're seeing a very, broad distribution across the state. So, it's fairly evenly spread throughout the state.
And you already gave us the charter versus non-charter.
And as far as specific assignments, we don't have that breakdown because again, we don't know what that's going to look like in the future. And so I think to evaluate this data on what types of misassignments we're seeing, it's really going to be a different picture as we move forward, especially because the 24-25 school year was still a school year where charter schools had not had that deadline for ensuring that all of their educators are fully credentialed. You might recall that AB 1505 changed the charter school credentialing requirements, and they had a 5-year window in order to ensure that all of their teachers for both core academic courses and for elective courses were appropriately credentialed. And so we would likely see some data that kind of skews the numbers because of that. So we did not do that breakdown specifically for the test data.
What is the ed code that allows anybody with a BA, credential based on BA in student teaching to be able to do things like community board school or homeschooling?
And those assignments would not appear as a factor in sanctions because those are local assignment options. So those are considered appropriate assignments.
But of the 150, give or take, schools, they could have, some of those could be as easily fixed as just saying.
Most definitely. And that's another, thing to consider is that in the 24-25 school year, CalSAS monitoring was still fairly new. I think we were only 3 years into the official monitoring. And so LEAs are still coming out of COVID and still trying to understand the process of monitoring. And so anytime an LEA chooses not to participate in monitoring, all of their potential misassignments do turn into actual misassignments. And with the team doing outreach annually, they have been reducing the number of LEAs that are non-participatory and are moving into, working their misassignments to ensure that we get correct data. And so that's another factor that when we compare the test data to what we might see in the future.
Thank you. So I think we're ready for the recording secretary.
Yolanda Munoz. Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Just one more comment. Hi, my name is Yolanda Munoz on behalf of California Teachers Association. We support the proposed solution to the audit report to issue sanctions for misassignments with the required training proposal. It is important to educate school administrators and other appropriate district staff on proper assignments while holding them accountable. CTA asks that the CTC consider publicly posting a list of the LEAs that complete the training. Transparency with this information would support educators and employers alike in understanding and reducing the number of misassignments. Thank you.
Chris Reef. This.
Step down to me. Maybe step down.
If somebody else. Thank you, Renee.
He's not directly on here. Wait for a moment.
Oh. Someone can dance.
Two minutes really go by fast, doesn't it? Good morning, commissioners. I'm Chris Reef, on behalf of the California School Boards Association. Thank you for the opportunity. First, I want to just say thank you to the commission and commission staff for continuing to work with us and other stakeholders. We know that this has been a thoughtful process. However, we still have some fairly significant concerns and would echo many of the concerns raised by my colleague with the Association of California School Administrators. Regarding the item, I think what you're seeing and what the questions the commission members are asking are very, very apropos in the identifying schools is a very important structure, and understanding how that impacts those schools is critical to understanding what are the necessary sanctions, what are the necessary steps that should be taken. And so by not knowing what schools or districts are being identified, we don't know what the root causes are of some of these issues. As you know, we were facing an unprecedented staffing shortage across the state. I can go down the rabbit hole there if we like, but that is definitely a contextual set of information that we would strongly recommend the commission take into consideration before submitting the regulations to the Office of Administrative Law. I also want to offer a technical kind of piece in terms of once the language goes to the Office of Administrative Law, there is not a lot of room for refinement. The opportunity for refinement of the language is here and now, not before the Office of Administrative Law. You guys have more of the authority to make significant and substantive changes to that language currently, as opposed to what we would necessarily have under the Office of Administrative Law, speaking from past experience. Appreciate the comments made from other stakeholders in terms of requiring board members to be trained. We would be respectfully in opposition to that. There we can go down, and I'm happy to answer questions in regards to that, but more specifically, if this item would be brought to, let's say, a board meeting by virtue of staff, i.e. a superintendent, deputy superintendent, so forth, that is then the information and the guidance and the information provided to the board so that the board can act appropriately. This training would be unnecessary in that regard because that would be, that is the general function of the school district. So we would encourage the commission to table this for further conversation and discussion, especially around the collection of qualitative, not just quantitative data that is guiding the conversation. Thank you.
Recording secretary, are there any other public comments?
Other public comments.
The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Rich.
I wasn't able to be here for the April meeting when it was approved. So just I thought that frankly the 25% seems a little high from the standpoint. I probably would have said mandatory training a little smaller, lower percentage. It just seems like a lot of schools not to have mandatory. But the other thing that's true to me is suppose schools have been above the 25% threshold. They've had mandatory training, all the training that's been suggested, and they still don't improve their misassignment. What happens? That is to say, I mean,
Yeah, I
at the
think
moment, nothing.
that with this version of the plan, we don't have a what happens next. However, our plan is to bring back an item after our first year of implementation when we have some data to look at, and then in following years as well. And so if we see a pattern of LEAs not having improvement after being sanctioned 1, 2, 3 years, that's when we would come to you all with that data and seek feedback, work with some of our external partners to try to identify what would be our next steps. Perhaps that would be working with the legislature to seek some additional opportunities to have sanctions, or working with our partners at California Department of Education who can leverage fiscal sanctions for the ADA funding. So I think we're using our regulatory authority that exists now to have this proposal before you all, but this isn't, the last you'd hear of it. You would be getting reports out on the outcomes of the program and then an evaluation of what next steps might be needed.
Okay. The other question I had is, it was, I don't remember who raised it, but this said something about a super, if the school, the sanction is a charter school, the district superintendent shouldn't be required to have the training. Legally, what, if any, authority does a district superintendent have over behavior at a charter school? I don't.
So many individuals share legal responsibility, education code to appropriately assigned educators. I think Anne can probably speak a little bit better to that. She has some more knowledge than I do.
So the charter school administrator is responsible by law to appropriately assign. The charter authorizer is also the monitoring authority responsible to review certificated assignments for the school. Monitoring authority could be the chartering authority could be a district or the county office, depending on who the authorizer is. And then the charter school governing board also plays a role in that process. So as Erin said, there are many different individuals.
Just to clarify, could you go over that again? In terms of liaise would be. So like I'm Goleta Union School District, so my monitoring authority that I would have to work with is Santa Barbara County Office. If I'm San Francisco Unified, my monitoring authority is Aaron. So could you go through that of the different types of schools, school for the deaf, all of those, who their monitoring authority is?
Sure.
Does the monitoring authority have any authority over the behavior of the charter school? Did they get-
They're responsible for providing support and guidance to the school that they oversee. And then, so that's the monitoring authority, which Anne can go.
5 a.m.
Answer, sorry. I haven't had enough coffee this morning, guys. Usually last on the agenda, no. There's also a charter authorizer, and so that's where the district superintendent comes in. If the district has authorized the charter, because the district superintendent has legal authority over the assignment of the schools that they oversee, and they are the authorizer for the charter school, that's the connection there. But I'll let Anne answer the very specific question on who the monitoring authorities are for all the different schools.
So the monitoring authority for a traditional non-charter school is the monitoring authority for charter school is a chartering authority, which could be district, county, or the State Board of Education. And state special schools and all single district counties and the State Board authorized charters fall under the commission's monitoring.
It's complicated.
So when you said work with, what does that mean? You have to work with their monitoring authority to then.
Yes, so their monitoring authority is responsible for having the final outcome of misassignment. So while the LEA or the district would be providing details and information in the CalSAS system on their assignments that are identified as potential misassignments, the monitoring authority is responsible for assessing and evaluate the legitimacy of that information that's provided and identifying if something is or is not a misassignment. And they're responsible for working with and overseeing that LEA or that district to support them in correcting those assignments in the future.
Okay, but is overseeing, I guess I'm thinking about if there's whatever behavior at the school district level that's resulting in the misassignment, does the overseeing entity have power to tell them to change that behavior? That is, monitoring and reporting and also is fine, but the whole purpose of this is to change behavior, right? To get rid of misassignment of. So somebody's behavior has to change, and we're hoping that training will, oh, I didn't realize, or something. But if we keep doing it, who has the power to step in and reassign the staff that's doing it, or to make the changes that result in?
So to maybe clarify the question, credentialese.
Yeah, I don't speak credentialese, sir.
When I was the county office responsible for monitoring, if I had a teacher who didn't have a credential, I could hold their paycheck when they didn't get paid by income. If they had the wrong credential, I couldn't hold their paycheck. So I think what you're asking, is there any teeth in the monitor? So if a superintendent of a charter school says, I don't like the way you're doing that, do they have any authority over that?
I think their authority would be in their reauthorizing of the charter school. So it could be grounds to not reauthorize the charter school.
So let's say somebody that Aaron is responsible for monitoring, if they tell you to pound sand, what can you do?
If it is a credentialed administrator or superintendent, then we could, as the commission, potentially levy sanctions on their credential. We haven't explored that yet. And so I think we're discussing an area that, we need to explore further. And I think the result of this system would give us some insight onto where these gray areas and where these flaws exist. And if we need to have, opportunities to speak with the legislature and shore up some of these gray areas, this system would give us the data we need to do that. So we don't have answers to all these questions because this is very new and it's never been done before. And so again, I think, that's why our plan is to really evaluate and assess once the system is in place and come back to you with some of these answers or more questions.
If you're done, Danette?
Have there had any conversations with the auditor's office about whether this training constitutes the kind of sanction they were thinking about?
We have reported to the auditor's office at all the intervals previously, and they have been supportive of our proposal, as has the governor's office, as they funded our budget change proposal that we requested to support this work.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this item back to us. And I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the thoughtful refinements that have been put in place since we heard about this at our last meeting. My question revolves around the 45-day public comment period. And I was hoping you could refresh our collective memory about what happens during that period. Should you move it forward? Like, what is that period intended to do? What can you do if you get comments from the public? Because I did hear some concern in the public comment that you're not able to change things. I was just wondering if you could just give me a short refresher on the process.
So the 45-day comment period is intended for the public to, voice their any concerns or their proponent of the language. We would collect the comments at the close of the public comment period, review, and if substantial changes are necessary, then we would bring it back, obviously, to the commission for review. If substantial changes are necessary, that packet would essentially need to be re-noticed to the public for a new comment period. So it's intended to have the opportunity to submit. We would bring back to you if we need to make any substantial changes. Things like typos and things like that. Okay, within that period. There's also the opportunity for the public to request a public hearing during that.
Would the changes to the Budget Act also be covered both as something that could be to do?
There are changes in the Budget Act that could impact this work in any way. I think that we would not be submitting this regulatory packet. We anticipate seeing the budget language, very soon, knock on wood. And so, likely this packet will not be submitted before we see the budget language. And so if that were to happen, we would come back to you with a summary of what those budget changes are that impact the language and then seek your guidance from there.
Thank you. That was helpful. So just to clarify, you said, I just want to make sure I understand that should there be new language or new concepts or new levers available to us, we wouldn't be submitting this until we saw that. So we wouldn't have to redo. Yes,
definitely.
Okay.
And to kind of, build on what Anne shared, the regulatory process is a public process, and that is why there is a public notice and a public comment period of 45 days. So while, we as staff bring items forward for public comment prior to submission to the Office of Administrative Law, within that process, there is an additional built-in opportunity for public comment and public dialogue around the changes to the law. So
if I may just kind of clarify one more thing. I know that there are a lot of different timelines that don't always jive with each other, like the 45-day public comment. And I heard you say you'd bring it back to us, but maybe we don't meet within that 45-day window. So you are confident that you could make all of these timelines, like when we need to respond to the auditor, the 45 days with when our next meeting is, you think you can make that all work because you guys are pros at that. Yes? Yes, excellent.
We're a regulatory agency.
Yay!
Our bread and butter.
Surprise, I saw that it said K-12. schools. Don't we want TK-12 schools?
Thank you. Yes.
So that's a small one, but small but mighty.
There, yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Let's bring them in.
Marquita.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for this very thoughtful discussion. And once again to the staff, thank you for your responsivity to commissioner questions as well as to our colleagues who have provided comments. Aaron, I just want to make sure I'm plans to monitor the implementation and make changes moving forward is what I heard you say several times now. And that gives me great comfort as you work with the field to implement this, that you'll come back to the commission as you usually do with changes. But I just want to make sure that I understand that that's the iterative process that's going to happen moving forward.
Absolutely. So if the regulation language is approved today, the steps moving forward would be that we would start to prepare the packet for the Office of Administrative Law. And in that time, we anticipate that we would see the budget language. So anything that impacts this proposal, we would make sure that we pause our path forward and bring an item back in August. In a world where there are no changes that impact this proposal, we would submit the packet to the Office of Administrative Law. They would post a public notice. And the commission would be sending out a notice that announces this public notice with the Office of Administrative Law to all of our partners in the field through our distribution list. And so at that point, there would be a date given for the start of the public comment period. It would be a 45-day period. And that would be the time in which any member of the public can submit any comment to us regarding the regulation text. So that would be suggestions or maybe areas where there's impact that we hadn't discussed or thought of. At that point, we would record all of those public comments. We would provide them to you in an agenda item. And this is where, if there are no substantial suggestions or public comments, it would be an item. If there are substantial public comments where we feel that there needs to be discussion, then it would be agendized item for discussion. And at that point, we would seek your feedback and input based on what those public comments are. If there's changes that need to be made to the regulation based on your discussion around the public comments, we would make those changes. And now at that point, we could either create a 15-day notice that starts that public notice process over again. We could withdraw the packet, make those substantial changes, and start the process from the very beginning of the public comment for 45 days. Or if they're not substantial changes, we would just proceed with the regulation packet. And that was what Anne was referring to, small grammatical issues, typos, wording changes. At that point, once we have that regulation language solidified and set after the public has made their comments, we would submit what we call the final packet to Office of Administrative Law. At that point, OAL has 30 days to review our language and provide any feedback and either approve or deny that packet. We work with them extensively during that time, and typically they use that whole 30 days. So it would be the entire 30 days that before we'd see anything from the Office of Administrative Law. So that's kind of how the process works in a nutshell. If the language is approved, it takes effect the following quarter for the Office of Administrative Law. So they have quarterly publications for the language. So I believe we would likely be looking at an October 1st, November,
very earliest.
November implementation at the very earliest that the regulation would be in law.
Thank you, Aaron. Commissioner Simmons, I can't read the room, but I would be ready to provide a motion if there's no other comments.
I think we have other
Okay.
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I appreciate the careful thought that's gone into the differentiation of the different modules based on the audience that's going to be provided. In the item, it says that the training will have training, public notice, reporting, plan for improvement, and governing board involvement. I am curious, one of the public comment we received today is about root cause. is there space within that broad description for the people conducting the module to be able to conduct some sort of root cause?
I think that the root cause for every LEA is different. And so I think that would come into play for those LEAs that are sanctioned, for those school sites that are sanctioned, when they are developing their plan of improvement that they're reporting out to their board, and they're working with their monitoring authority to do that, then that would be the opportunity to kind of look at their specific misassignments and what their potential root cause is. Now, one LEA, it may be that they just have not been participating in monitoring. And so at the end of the monitoring cycle, every potential misassignment gets identified as an uncorrected misassignment. If that's the root cause for them, it's a very simple fix. Just come in and participate in monitoring. And for others, it may be vastly different based on their local circumstances. So I think that's what the intent of the plan for improvement is for them to do that root cause analysis and look at what their obstacles are and what they're facing. And, you know, based on what we're seeing, the outcomes of that, that may be opportunities for us to develop additional training.
Thank you.
Else? Okay, who do they turn in that report to?
That report is shared with their governing board as an action item.
How do you know at the commission that they did it or not?
We would have to see an action item on the governing board agenda. So that's something that the team would have to follow up from their public notices. We're not asking that they send that to us. That would be on the team to do. The assignment team. You ladies.
Okay, so because like a lot of these things, you do the item, and the way that it's enforced is you don't get you won't provide the credential for the person unless you have the item attached. So instead, for this case, you guys would be going to, let's say, show me your items.
It should be a public notice item for their board meeting, so it should be publicly available for us to view the item. Yeah.
So when you come back to us, assuming that Marquita makes her motion and it is seconded, the report that you bring back to us in a year will include all of the different categories that Surratt talked about. And depending on the data, it might even be include like the 303 kind of sanction that you alluded to.
I think after our first year, we wouldn't be looking at that because we wouldn't see who, we wouldn't have data on if any LEAs thumbed their nose at the process or didn't complete the process. So we would need probably a few years out to be able to provide that. But yes, in future years, we could do that. But everything else we would provide in our first year report out.
I will entertain a motion from Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. I'm going to look at page 4 of the item and the 3 components, and that would constitute the motion that I would propose.
I hear a second. So, and I've stopped reading my notes. Okay. Any further discussion from commissioners? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Matt Brown.
Aye.
Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Marquita Shire.
Aye.
Ruben Mencias.
Aye.
Wendy Redfern.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Richard Simpson.
Aye.
Mike Torres.
Aye.
Don Yusoff.
Aye.
Carries.
Thank you, Mrs. Scribble, Henderson, Harris, and Lucas. No other items. I adjourn the certification committee.
You. Next is the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Brown, will you please convene the committee?
Yes, okay, sorry. I would like to call the June 2026 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. We have 6 items on the agenda. The first item for today is 4A, update on the plan to revise and restructure the Administrative Services Credential. This item is being presented by Erin Sullivan. And this is an information action item. I'm just going to talk a little slowly while Ms. Sullivan gets all set up. And when you are ready, Ms. Sullivan, please begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Give me just one moment to pull up my slide deck. Do I have permission to share it? All right, thank you for your patience. Good morning. I am excited to present to you this morning our update on the plan to revise and restructure the Administrative Services Credential. This item builds on the item that was brought to you last October that was really more of kind of a nuts and bolts, how we were going to move through this process. So there's a lot more content in this item, and it's much more interesting, if I may say so myself. The item does a number of things. It provides some really fun, historic, and current context for this work. It introduces the proposed approach that will be taken by staff in the work group and inclusive of the commission and the phases as we move through this work. It is asking the commission for input and ultimately approval of the charge to the work group. The appendix includes both the work group members, but also the meeting schedule with topic areas. So I will just defer to you to follow there where needed. One note for everyone, including the public, the item that's posted right now has revision at the top of it. So I just want to clarify what that is. We made an error when posting for Dr. Tamarin Tooker. We listed Dr. Tooker as a representative of AICCU instead of AXA. So that's the only thing that we corrected in this item. All right. And I just also want to put us in a space and harken back to Chair Shire. Put us in a space for this work of this is a time for hope and inspiration. It's been a very long time since we have taken up the Administrative Services Credential standards and all of the components related to it. There's been a lot that has changed in the world of education, and what is required of these administrators has certainly changed. So this is a really hopeful opportunity for this work group and for staff. So just briefly, and you have heard about this a number of times, there are a lot of legislative forces that sort of brought us to where we are today, including a veto message by the governor in 2024, which was the message that initially asked the commission to take a look at what 2 credential pathways to 2 different kinds of admin credentials might look like. One for teachers, one for folks with non-teaching experience. And then that paired with the passage of AB 1009 last year, which offered occupational therapists and physical therapists now an opportunity to earn an administrative services credential, but with a limited authorization that does not allow them to sort of discipline or mentor teachers unless they also have some specific expertise in that area as determined by their employer. Those 2 things sort of set up that interesting opportunity, right, for these 2 credential pathways for folks with teaching experience and folks with non-teaching experience. In addition to that, we had several bills that were signed in 2025 related specifically to the admin credential. We had 1454, which asked that the commission please include the really important and critical literacy content for administrators in the standards. We had 959, which added
an intern pathway for LEAs, but also had some content in there asking that the pre-service and support and professional development for those interns be aligned more to what we have for teachers. So currently there isn't anything like that for admin interns. So we need to take a look at that. And then AB 1119 was signed, and while it is not does not directly address admin services, it is creating an opportunity within the schools that administrators are going to be prepared for. When we're moving towards talking about individuals that are coming out of programs with 2 credentials, one in gen ed and one in special ed, with all that rich content, hopefully serving in inclusive classrooms in these schools. As those inclusive classrooms become more, hopefully, more prevalent in the schools, more the norm in the schools, administrators are going to need to understand how to work with those educators, work with those classroom situations. So we included 1119 in here. That work is going on sort of concurrently with admin services right now within the commission, but certainly will have some effect on what we do. And in that same vein, and also recognizing the content of the 4 letters that we received, and thank you to our friends in the field for submitting those letters. I just want to be clear that although there were no bills associated with it, the idea of the real critical nature of preparing these individuals also to work with their TK classrooms and any other early childhood education classrooms and educators they have on their campus, that is also very important. And I just want to vocalize that staff recognizes that. And also content for working with education specialists, teachers, and their classrooms, whether or not they are inclusive dual credential classrooms. So there's a lot that needs to go in there. Also recognizing some content around EL and the new EL roadmap that's being adopted and all of that. So all of that information and content can be part certainly of this inquiry phase that we're going to walk through with the work group initially. So I want to acknowledge those letters. All right, in addition to the legislative background, and I will try to move through this quickly, but I don't want to give anything short shrift. In addition to the legislative background that's guiding this, there's a really interesting some historic content here. Going back as far as the 1960s, when we had the Fisher Act, there was a time in the past where we did have in California 2 different types of admin credentials. One of them really was the kind of admin credential that we think about nowadays, the kind of sort of broader administrator credential. And the other one was a supervisor credential. And that the authorization statement for that included authorizing those folks to serve as a supervisor, consultant, coordinator, or in an equivalent supervisory or intermediate administrative position at the grade level or in the subject area of the program listed on the credential. So there was a history there many, many decades ago, but nevertheless, something for us to look at as we're doing this work. Now, then moving into the 1970s, we started to move towards this broader authorization for these administrators. And then into the 1980s, we started to really focus, given that broader authorization, really focus on the preparation and the field work and establish that 2-tier credential that we have now, which is that preliminary credential and then that clear credential where they get their pre-service and also an induction opportunity as well for those administrators. I won't go through all of this, but this just summarizes some of what we've done in what we did in the early 2010s. I think 2011 counts as a 20, when we include it. So we continued with that 2-level structure. We still have it. We've done things to improve upon it, certainly. We now have, as I mentioned, we have had intern routes, but they are now offered by LEAs as well. There was an exam route. I think it was the SLLA exam, if my commission history mind is correct. Thank you, David, or Commissioner Simmons. We currently have the CPACE exam. So, these are current realities that will be, part of the evaluation of the work group. There continues to be a focus on strong clinical practice. And then, of course, the commission adopted with recommendation from a previous administrator work group the administrator content expectations, which are the equivalent of the SMRs for the administrators, the performance expectations, which of course are measured by the performance assessment, the professional standards for educational leaders, which are the administrator equivalent of the CSTP, which we use for our educators. Of course, that Cal APA was created, and we have that CPACE examination that I mentioned. So this is sort of the ending of our historic background and where we are today. And where we are today is we have a very broad sort of duty-based authorization that is really focused on the types of services that might be provided in various settings. But those settings are school sites, district, county offices. Are they programmatic settings, or maybe it's a specialized administrator role? Right. So I'm going to move into now. Sorry. The proposed approach and the work plan and our plans to engage not only the work group, but the commission and the public along the way. So the approach of the work is going to be a process that includes a lot of deliberation, important deliberation, field engagement, certainly staff analysis, reviews of current research and examples from other states, of course, and commission input at very key points along the way. The proposed project sequence moves from a shared, if you look at the appendix, the proposed project sequence moves from a place of sort of creating some shared understanding with the work group, certainly leaning into inquiry, meaning not immediately running into what should be, we have the answers, but really taking some time to start at the really broad top end of a funnel and start to feed things in there. And, you know, it's like that brainstorming, nothing's off the board. Let's create a shared understanding with the work group. Then we will move into starting to filter toward possible changes and possible recommendation themes. And of course, the commission will be involved in that. And then start to really filter down even further to any proposals that might require future commission consideration, commission action. Would we need ed code changes? Would we need regulatory changes? Would we need, et cetera? Staff is going to return to the commission, as I've said, at key points of the process to certainly invite your feedback, but also with any action that is necessary to keep the work group moving forward, keep it focused on the direction that it needs to go, but also any direction where the commission would like to see it moving. And that will help to inform staff so we can bring that back to the work group before it moves really from one kind of really critical phase to the next. So just briefly, I won't belabor this. You do have the name of the individuals that were ultimately appointed by by Executive Director Mary Sandy. The process was one of, obviously application, but also we accepted some nominations from our critical constituent groups. We, among other things, asked the individuals to provide us with a brief sort of written statement describing their interest in participating and the perspective or expertise that they're going to bring to the work group. And I thought that was a really interesting way to engage them early on before appointment. And then ultimately, not only are they all representatives of administrative backgrounds, but we have a good broad representation within this work group as well of individuals that have backgrounds as either educators or faculty members or program directors spanning from PK3 to gen ed and special ed. So we've got some good teaching background as well, which obviously is very important as these folks make some recommendations about what administrators need to know and be able to do. It's going to be very important that they understand what teachers and the folks underneath them at the school sites are going to need from them as well. So you will notice beginning on page 8 that there are 4 focus areas that are going to be open for 4 focus areas for policy consideration. These focus areas are also aligned, by the way, to the charge that we're asking the commission to consider and potentially approve at the end of this item. We are, as I mentioned, really in the inquiry phase here. We're not proposing answers. You know, there are a series of questions under each focus area. We're not looking for answers right now. They are potential questions to guide folks through that inquiry phase. Let's see, each one of the focus areas includes a list of the primary policy drivers in the context. So if you've taken a look at that, you will see things mentioned at the top of each focus area, like the veto message, you know, drives this one, commission history in the credential area drives this one, along with maybe some of the bills. And you'll see that in some areas, more than one of those policy contexts or historic contexts is there. And that's just to provide some context for those focus areas. So the questions are listed under them, but I will just briefly sort of summarize some of them, right? So in focus area number 1, which is about the credential and the credential structure and the authorization, we're looking at, you know, given those policy drivers and the context noted, what would multiple pathways authorize these individuals to do? Do some of their responsibilities require additional preparation or experience? How would candidates or credential holders move between the authorizations should they wish to do so, right? So we have really in the last, I would say, decade or so, taken a look at how can we bridge things, either bridging from one credential to the next step up, or if we had 2 types of admin credentials, or however many types we end up with your guidance, is there a way for folks to bridge across those if that's something that they want to do? I won't summarize all of the focus areas, but I just kind of wanted to bring that for focus area 1. So you're thinking about that. I think there are some good summaries within the charge of the work group as well that kind of summarize those questions for those focus areas. So I will then jump into the project sequence and commission engagement. There is a lot on this slide, I understand. But it starts on page 13 for you if you'd like to take a look at that. As I keep mentioning, we have that initial inquiry phase that's going to focus on statutory direction, et cetera. We will move then into possible changes and recommendation, which I also mentioned. With that second bullet, I will just say that is a place where key input from the commission will be sought at before we move into any of the formal recommendations or proposed changes that are mentioned there. And then in the third bullet, of course, any substantive proposals would require staff to return to the commission for consideration through future information, action, or action items as appropriate. So I think you know that we wouldn't get ahead of you, but I just want to make sure that you all have that guarantee from us that anybody from the public that's watching understands the commission is a critical guider of this work and ultimately makes the final decisions about any recommendations that staff brings forward from the work group. So the proposed work group charge has those 4 components in it from those 4 focus areas. That begins at the bottom of page 12. I have printed them here. I am not going to read them to you, but just guiding you and any members of the public that are watching where they can find them. And as I mentioned, they are aligned to the 4 focus areas that I briefly covered. And we are asking at this point that the commission please review, which I'm sure you already have, if appropriate, approve the proposed charge of the Administrative Services Credential Work Group, and also, of course, provide any feedback on the process, the proposed focus areas, the project plan, and any initial questions for inquiry that might guide the first phase that, you know, maybe aren't represented here and you would like us to certainly include with that work. And with that, I'm happy to take a question.
Okay. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Jessica Sacco, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you so much. Jessica Sacco on behalf of Children Now. I refer you to the letter submitted on behalf of Children Now and several other members of the LCFF Equity Coalition for our full comments on this item. Children Now supports the approval of the ASC workgroup charge. Staff have proposed a thoughtful, structured process, and we genuinely appreciate that. Administrator preparation is one of California's most powerful levers to advance equity and sustaining a diverse educator workforce. Administrators decide which professional learning to prioritize, which materials to adopt, and what conditions teachers work in. So we thank the Commission staff for acknowledging our letter and stating that the intent to ensure that this work group charge reaches the full landscape of what the state asks school leaders to do, not only those named as statutory drivers. Specifically, we elevated 3 things within our letter. First, preparing administrators in early childhood development and the value of the PK3 ECE credential. As universal transitional kindergarten is implemented, we need leaders who understand play-based, developmentally appropriate instruction, and the credentials best designed to meet those instructional demands. Second, adding the English Learner Roadmap for literacy and language supports, since serving English learners is fundamentally a leadership responsibility. And third, including how administrators can support not only literacy, but also equitable math instruction as aligned with the 2023 California Mathematics Framework. Thank you.
Stephen Almazan, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commission members. My name is Stephen Almasan, and I serve as the Director of Policy and Partnerships at Voice Institute. I want to thank the Commission for beginning this important work to implement AB 1454. We appreciate the thoughtful process you've outlined and are excited to continue partnering with you all as this work moves forward. We also support the recommendations submitted in the LCFF Equity Coalition letter that Jessica Sacco just outlined, and look forward to engaging constructively as the work group begins its work. Thank you.
Olaf Olson, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Olaf Olson, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm here respectfully to urge the Commission as it considers revisions to the Administrative Service Credential requirements and pathways to include a pathway for experienced career technical education credential holders who do not have a bachelor's degree. I currently work at the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations. I hold a clear CTE credential. I'm also a journeyman electrician. My career has been built through years of teaching, training, field experience, mentoring, and helping people develop real-world skills that can lead to employment, stability, and a stronger future. I understand the importance of strong preparation for school administrators. I'm not asking the Commission to lower the standards. I'm asking the Commission to recognize that leadership experience, industry expertise, a clear credential, and years of service in career technical education should also count as meaningful preparation for a pathway into administration. California needs administrators who understand CTE, apprenticeship, workforce development, skilled trades, and the students and adults who would thrive in hands-on learning environments. This is especially important in settings like correctional education, adult education, alternative educations, and CTE programs, where many of us come from non-traditional but highly skilled professional backgrounds. Right now, the bachelor's degree requirement prevents some experienced CTE educators from even entering the administrative pathway, even when they have clear credentials, significant teaching experience, and strong leadership potential. For people like me, that creates a ceiling that does not reflect our skills, our commitment, or the needs of the workforce. As the Commission considers new pathways, I urge you to include CTE credential holders without bachelor's degree in the conversation. Please consider an option to recognize clear CTE credentials. Verify industry experience, journeyman level training, years of successful teaching and leadership, and appropriate administrative preparation as an alternative route. California is asking students to value multiple pathways to success. I hope our credentialing system and beliefs for educators can reflect that. Thank you for your time and consideration in this important issue.
Eduardo Gutierrez, please unmute your phone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eduardo Gutierrez with Early Edge, California. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment. We encourage the Commission to consider how revisions to the Administrative Services Credential can better prepare school leaders to support developmentally appropriate practices for young learners, including multilingual learners. As the Commission reviews preparation expectations, there is an important opportunity to strengthen administrator knowledge of early childhood development, language acquisition, multilingualism, and developmentally appropriate instruction. We also encourage the Commission to explicitly incorporate the California English Learner Roadmap into the administrator preparation. The roadmap provides a statewide vision for supporting multilingual learners, yet many administrators receive limited preparation on how to implement its principles in practice. As a result, decisions related to curriculum, class observations, educator evaluation, professional learning, and instructional priorities may not fully reflect the needs and strengths of multilingual learners. This is especially important for California's youngest learners. The early years are a critical period for cognitive, language, and social-emotional development, and multilingual learners thrive when instruction builds on their home languages and cultural assets while supporting English language development. Administrators play a vital role in creating these conditions that make these practices possible through instructional leadership, staffing, resource allocation, and educator support. Given AB 1454's emphasis on literacy, English language development, and multilingual learners, we encourage the Commission to ensure that administrator preparation equips future leaders to implement the English Learner Roadmap and support educators serving preschool and the early grades. Doing so will better align school leadership with evidence-based practices that promote equity, multilingualism, and positive outcomes for young children. Thank you.
Sarah Lillis, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Sarah Lillis. I'm the Executive Director for Teach Plus California. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment. I will associate my comments with the letter from the LCFF Equity Coalition, as well as my colleagues at Children Now and EdVoice. We appreciate the responsiveness, the really intentional process that staff has put forward, and the responsiveness to our letter to be clear that the credential will address the full breadth of domains for administrators, particularly as Ms. Sacco mentioned, early childhood education, the English Learner Roadmap, and math instruction. We also just wanted to reinforce the importance of thinking about how we explicitly prepare our administrators to recruit, support, and retain a diverse educator workforce. School leaders are among the most influential factors in shaping educator working conditions, professional growth, and retention. And, it is essential that we really think about principal preparation, effectiveness, and stability as closely associated with teacher retention and student outcomes. And as the state addresses educator shortages and works to build a workforce that better reflects its students, administrative preparation should explicitly equip future leaders to recruit, develop, support, and retain diverse educators, cultivating inclusive school cultures, fostering educator belonging, supporting meaningful professional learning, creating pathways for teacher leadership, and building the capacity to lead equitable hiring and retention strategies. As such, we would also look forward to partnering as much as we can as the process moves forward to bring teacher voices into the space to help reflect what we want from to ensure that our administrators are prepared and supported to create the environments that enable them to thrive. Thank you.
Manuel Ewan Rostro, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hi, good morning. My name is Manuel Bonrostro, Director of Policy at Californians Together. First of all, I just want to say that we align with the recommendations submitted in the letter from the LCFF Equity Coalition regarding the Administrative Services Credential Workgroup charge. We also want to again emphasize the important role that administrators play in both shaping the education for students and in ensuring great educator working conditions and retention. While we strongly support the timely redesign, we do ask the Commission to elevate three critical areas within the work group scope to ensure school leaders can truly advance equity. First, we must integrate the English learner roadmap into the standards. Literacy and language development for our state's 1 million English learners cannot be treated as separate from the broader literacy agenda. And the EO roadmap is fundamentally a leadership document for administrators that can help guide instruction and help them organize resources across their districts. Second, I want to elevate the comments about the shifts in instruction across California. And we see this as a great opportunity for administrators to be equipped to support equitable math instruction that is aligned to the 2023 California Math Framework. We want to ensure that all of our students, including English learners, have access to rigorous math coursework. Lastly, we want to emphasize the shifts across our education system that have expanded access to transitional kindergarten and preschool. A lot of these shifts are being ran across our districts through the great leadership of school leaders. We think it's important for administrators to be equipped with the knowledge and the developmentally appropriate knowledge that it takes to teach our young learners, especially our young multilingual learners. Thank you again for the wonderful work, and we see this as a great opportunity to keep advancing equity in California.
There are no other requests for public comment.
Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Simmons.
I think that the issues around multilingualism and literacy are very well-founded, and I'm sure that you are going to incorporate it into the just with regard to public comment, I thought we maybe, or could you speak to the designated subject supervision and coordination credential that is currently available for people who do not have a bachelor's degree but have a clear career technical education credential, so that there is a pathway currently for designated subjects holding, correct?
But they have to have a bachelor's degree.
Hold that part of it.
So if they hold one of the designated subjects credentials that doesn't require a BA, because some do with some subject areas, they have to also have a bachelor's degree in order to then qualify to move into the admin pathway.
And the other thing I was just going to point out is that, as I understand the current legislation, if you have an OT or a PT, you would not be able to supervise teaching staff.
Supervise and evaluate.
Because you don't have that expertise.
Unless the employer determines that they do. So they get a credential with an authorization statement that says you may not do this unless your employer determines that you may. So then the employer has to make that determination.
So would the education codes that say okay, I'm gonna think offline on that. There are rules about whether you can evaluate someone when they're working outside of their area. That's so I would want to think that through. The other thing is that if we currently have an SLP or a school psychologist, they can get the full administrative credential, even though they probably have no more expertise in teaching than an OT or a PT.
I would respectfully, I don't know that I have enough information to refute that, but I think
so an SLP without a special class authorization.
Yeah. I mean, it's in education code, so I can't, argue one way or the other, and it has been that way for quite some time for me, but I mean, it's a point well taken. Oh, is Erin table?
Teamwork.
If you get one more Aaron up here, you'll have the full.
I was just gonna say, I think, part of the, delineation for those is that the OTs and PTs don't have a base credential that the commission issues that covers any type of additional knowledge, skills, and abilities for preparation in a school site. So they're just solely working off of their professional license, whereas the PPS and the SLPs, there are credential programs that the commission, creates the standards for. And so I think that's likely when that legislation was passed, that kind of the line, the deciding factor for the different authorization.
And I would just also say, when you have work groups, often it's important to have people who play. Because you don't want to have a situation where the tail kind of wags the dog. And the majority of administrators are working in K-12. And the majority of them, our focus for several years has been for the principal as the majority of the positions. And I think with that base administrative credential, what I would want it to continue to be.
The comments, but I think it was Mr. Olson who was the CTE person who I guess has a credential but no BA. His comments interesting. Is the fact that I think you said not permitted to get an administrative credential because he doesn't have a BA, is that state law?
Yes.
Is that something? Seems like, if that seems like a good idea, that but for the BA, it seems like a good idea for those kind of people to be able to have access to getting an administrative credential. Is that something that someone could suggest to change the law to allow that?
Can I jump in on this?
It seems like the kind of thing that the work group might want to talk about and say, but for the statute, these kinds of people, could be, helpful as administrators, but the statute doesn't allow that. Maybe the legislature could consider change to that.
Yeah, I think this is a question that, with this item, lots of interest in what we're doing and lots of recommendations about things we ought to be considering in the suite of things that administrators do. So this will come to the group.
Okay.
And will certainly be part of their deliberations and back before you as something with their thoughts to consider in our staff analysis.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have questions or comments? I saw Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Cardenas.
I just have a suggestion. If there's a possibility to include school counselors in the work group. The only reason I say that is because it's going to sound wrong. We're losing a lot of school counselors to admin. We're not losing. You're gaining a lot of school counselors' perspectives into the admin field. And that's because a lot of our school counselors are leaders on our campuses. And so they recognize that, they understand the MTSS process, they understand coordination of services. So a lot of them are moving into administration. And because of that, I think they can provide a perspective of what administrators should also come in with to be able to assist our students, like our EL students, to be able to assist our special ed students. So just a suggestion to possibly include school counseling in there, or school psychology, or someone with a PPS that have that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Brown.
Just underscoring and appreciating the comments, the public comments that so many of them included about early learning in TK. And I think that's really important. And I think the other issues, I'm just reminded, the principal is the primary administrator. And we do want to be thinking carefully about what kind of skill set and what kind of professional preparation they have and who they'll be supervising. That's an issue in some of the early education programs in terms of who has the leadership skills and the professional, the knowledge and the experience. Not just the experience, but also the knowledge and professional skills.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Redfern.
Thank you for this, and I look forward to learning and seeing the reports from the work group. I just wanted to look at the composition of the members of the work group and just share my concern that there is only one teacher in that work group. I'm a little concerned that that voice and perspective might not be present in the work group.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Torres, and then I see you, Commissioner Grenoshire, Chair Grenoshire, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. And thank you for the presentation and again, as always, the careful thought in this item. I appreciate how the team had included the process in which this work group would conduct its business, including deliberation and field engagement. I think that's really important as I was thinking about the public comment that was provided in the conversation here around the need to have specific expertise around literacy and early learning and students, multilingual students. I can't go a meeting without mentioning mathematics and its importance and the mathematics framework and all the different things that it seeks to change in teaching and learning. And really it starts at the administrator level. So I appreciate that it's field engagement. So I'm really hoping that one piece says we're going to reach out to all of these different entities or collect all those expertise or collect data somehow from others and feedback. So I also want to go back to AB 1454 and the specific call out to alignment to the ELA-ELD framework. As I look at the different questions that are in the item that are proposed for the work group to consider, I don't see the word framework anywhere in there. I do see elements of literacy. I do see elements of language from 1454, but not specifically the framework. I do also want to call out that the AB 121, the Education Omnibus Trailer Bill, authorized the Department of Ed to create guidance to inform this upcoming English language arts, English language development follow-up adoption. And its purpose wasn't to create an updated version of the framework, but was rather to provide clarification specifically around literacy and all of the elements written within 1454 to help guide the instructional materials adoption to ensure that those materials align to those elements. We can't help but notice the copy and paste of those elements from 1454 into 121. And so then that tells me it's important that that this work group understand and take into account the guidance. Although 1454 doesn't say alignment to the guidance, it says alignment to the framework. The guidance was written to supplement or clarify framework. So I think it's really important since a lot of research, a lot of time and effort had gone into create that guidance, also be somehow integrated into the questions that the work group will be considering. Overall, thank you though for the work that the staff is doing to move this forward.
Thank you. Chair Grenoshire.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. I just want to comment on the elegance and the design of this work group, and I appreciate Ms. Sullivan's description of the policy drivers and the context that support this work. The LCSF letter talks about the importance of leadership, and we know that, and I just want to lift that up as we think about how we develop administrators who are going to continue to support the growth of their teachers and allow them to thrive in the context. So I look forward to the work of this work group.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would like to share some thoughts. Many of these have been echoed by my fellow commissioners, but I would like to elevate some of those because they resonate very much with me. This particular topic is very near and dear to my heart because, as I have shared before, my first experience in the work of the commission, besides getting my credential, was on the 2011 work group. And I loved it. It was amazing. I learned so much. And I object to saying it was a really, really long time ago, because for me, it seems like it was just yesterday. So having said that, I would like to elevate some things that I heard that I felt like some people were reading my own notes. I love how this item was organized. I love how it gave me the focus area. It gave me the policy driver. It really laid the breadcrumbs out for me to get into something that's really complicated and deep. So thank you so much for making this very accessible and comprehensible. Love that. I wanted to elevate something that Commissioner Torres just brought up about the significance of math instruction from a teacher who's working at a school in a district. This is the focus of my district for the last 3 years. Math instruction for our administrators, for our teachers, for really understanding what does the framework mean when it comes to putting it into practice. So I would definitely like to lift that up as a crucial area that we are working on every single day at Las Lomas Elementary in La Habra. It's super important. I also would like to reinforce, or first let me acknowledge that when you're trying to compose any work group, it is always a fine balance, right? Of getting the right knowledge in the room from the right part, from the right level of institution. You know, it's complicated. So I recognize that there are a lot of very smart people on this work group who have tremendous knowledge. And I do want to acknowledge that you did say, yes, some of these people had served as teachers, principals, etc., on their pathway to their current position. So having said that, I really am hoping that, and maybe even more than hoping, I expect that as part of that field engagement, that we reach out to people who are doing the work now, and that we elevate that practitioner piece. So I saw that there's only one principal who's currently doing the work, I'm guessing. So I'm hoping that, as I know you can't have everybody in the world on a work group, right? It's just too many chefs in the kitchen. But that we have regular ways of tapping into the people currently doing the work to elevate not just principal voice, but the teacher voice also. What do teachers need in the current climate? And classroom teachers, what do they need to be successful? Because teamwork makes the dream work in a school site. We all have to know what we all know, and we all have to know what helps us be our best. So I'm hopeful that that field engagement will include outreach to people currently doing the work. I also look forward to hearing the updates about this work group. Those were super exciting when we had the updates of the RDI TPA work group. We were like, oh my gosh, we're so awesome. I like those opportunities to celebrate the work along the way and to keep everybody up to speed and give opportunities for feedback. So thank you so much. Look forward to this work. And wait, my script. So friends, this is an information action item. Do I have a motion that the commission approve the proposed charge for the Administrative Services Credential Work Group? Excellent. Commissioner Simpson has moved. Commissioner Mencia seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
I call the vote. Commissioner Lee, do you have any disclosure?
No disclosures, thank you.
Matt Brown.
Aye.
Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Martina Bueno Shire.
Aye.
Ira Lee.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Mandy Redfern.
Aye.
David Simmons. Richard Simpson.
Aye.
Mike Torres.
Aye.
Wang Yusof.
Aye.
Dean carries.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ms. Sullivan, for this item. And the next item is excellent. Let's go. Our next item is 4B, amendments to Title V of the California Code of Regulations pertaining to the Child Development Permit. This item is being presented by Renee Marshall, Deborah Keeler, and Bronwyn Kennedy. This is an action item. I will give you a little bit of time to get settled. Welcome. Ms. Marshall, whenever your team is ready, please begin.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Commissioners. The revised Child Development Permit Matrix reflects a major step forward in meeting the goal of a clear, coherent, and inclusive permit structure. It responds to nearly 3 decades of evolution in the early childhood field and acknowledges the increased complexity of children's developmental needs, the importance of inclusive and equitable practices, and the growing diversity of California's early educator population. This agenda item presents staff recommendations regarding the proposed regulations of the California Code of Regulations 80105, 80107, 80109, 80110, 80111, 80112, 80113, 80114, and 80115. Approved by the Commission on Teaching Credentialing at its February 2026 meeting to implement amendments to the Child Development Permit. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Keeler.
Thank you. At the Commission's December 2025 meeting, the Commission approved and adopted the changes to the Child Development Permit structure and requirements. In February of 2026, the Commission approved these amendments to the proposed regulatory language, and staff were directed to move forward with the rulemaking process. The notice of the proposed action, which included proposed regulatory language, was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law and posted for the public in mid-March. The 45-day comment period was open from March 20th through May 4th. Staff received and reviewed 61 public comments during the public comment period. The Commission received a written request for a public hearing, which was held on May 13th, 2026, with 23 public comments. Thanks to the ECE community for all the great input. During the process, staff learned that a transition timeline must be included in the regulations or candidates in process of earning a child development permit under current regulations would be significantly affected. The proposed revisions resulting from public comment and the addition of a transition timeline are substantial changes that require appropriate public notice. Therefore, staff is recommending that the current package be pulled and a new package be submitted with the updated language. Should the Commission approve the changes and the timeline, they would be resubmitting to the Office of Administrative Law, and another 45-day comment period will open. The agenda item details specific amendments to the regulations based on public comment and the proposed timeline.
Staff recommends that the Commission approve proposed changes to the regulatory sections to Title V of the California Code of Regulations to the Child Development Permit. This will rescind the current regulations package, and staff will submit a new regulatory package to the Office of Administrative Law to continue the regulatory process. Staff recognizes the importance of providing adequate implementation time and technical assistance to permit holders, institutions of higher education, employers, local educational agencies, and early learning and care programs as the field transitions to the revised permit matrix. The proposed transition period will allow preparation programs and educational partners to align coursework, advisement, professional growth systems, and clinical practice requirements with the revised child development permit framework. Staff will continue to collaborate with partner agencies and educational partners throughout the implementation process and return to the Commission with implementation updates. Thank you, and we're now available for questions and comments.
Thank you. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Sandra Mo, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on these changes. I wanted to point out that there can be some confusion in how the wording is done with not using the full current terms in item 4B. And so there can be confusion between the multiple subject clinical practice and the revised supervised clinical field experience. If you just abbreviate to the term field experience or clinical experience, it may be confused with clinical practice. And so I would encourage the commission to make sure that every time they list that term, they use the full title. I've seen some confusion of this even in presentations made of the permit changes, calling it clinical practice instead of clinical experience. And so also, there's some there can be other confusing terms that the problem is that universities and community colleges use the term practicum for their clinical field experience. And so there could be some confusion in that way too. And so with the retirement of Kate Brown, who represents early childhood on the commission, it's really important also that the commission post that's been required by AB 1123, someone's placed in that position so that early childhood can be represented effectively and we can avoid confusion as we implement these new guidelines for the child development permit. And thank you for the opportunity to make a public comment.
Donna Cecil, please unmute your microphone and share.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Donna Cecil. I am the Vice President of Public Policy South for the California Community College Early Childhood Educators and a Public Policy Lead for PEACH. I appreciate the work that has gone into updating the child development permit structure. However, I ask you to reconsider one unintended consequence of the proposed regulations. Under the proposed permit structure, mentoring authority is moved to the Early Childhood Educator 3 level, which requires a bachelor's degree. While a bachelor's degree may be appropriate for some pathway, this change removes many experienced early educators from the future pool of potential mentor teachers, reducing the number of qualified professionals available to prepare the next generation of educators. It also creates a significant financial barrier to career advancement. Many experienced early educators, especially those working while attending community college, cannot immediately pursue a bachelor's degree due to costs, time constraints, work, and family responsibilities. They should not lose the opportunity to become mentors simply because they have not yet completed a four-year degree. Instead of supporting vertical movement within the profession, this proposal risks slowing it. These mentors support community college practicum students and are essential to building California's early childhood workforce. I respectfully urge the Commission to preserve mentoring opportunities at both the Early Childhood Educator 2 and Early Childhood Educator 3 levels. Doing so will protect the practicum infrastructure, remove unnecessary barriers to advancement, and strengthen the educator pipeline. Thank you for your consideration.
Jessica Sacco, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jessica Sacco on behalf of Children Now, California's whole child organization working on behalf of children prenatal to age 26. Children Now supports the staff recommendation to rescind the current regulations package adopt the proposed amendments, and restart the regulatory process with a transition plan. We thank the Commission for listening to the field and for its willingness to revise this matrix based on the feedback it received, while preserving the robust amount of input and design that went into the overall revision of the permit matrix. A thoughtful transition is necessary in order to minimize disruption for programs, candidates, and preparation institutions that California's youngest learners depend upon. We are grateful for the Commission's continued attention to this issue, and we look forward to partnering with you to get it right. Thank you.
We have no other request for public.
Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? I saw Commissioner Brown and then Commissioner Simpson.
Well, you know what I'm going to say in a way, because what you see here is how complex it is to do this work, to bring early childhood education into the Commission and Public Education. At the same time, all three of these comments really endorse the careful work that you're doing. How did she say? Partnering it to get it right. And also just to say, this kind of work that the Commission has done in terms of bringing in the community, the complex community, is complex, and therefore I certainly do support, in a sense, the redo on this, because that revision brings in those voices and lets them be considered, and then we'll continue to move it forward. So thank you for doing that. I've been on a number of these work group and the monthly meetings that you have, and one of the things I've noticed, and I'd like everyone to know this, is that over time, the size of the group, the depth of the group, the complexity of the groups just increases. And it makes everybody be interested in doing well by our youngest.
Commissioner Simpson.
My only comment was I was just curious, just not an area I understand about, just curious about the other two, I guess second and the other comments about the expertise versus practical, whatever it was.
Critical.
Some of the, is that something that's you need to fix, or is that, did you have any reaction to their comments about the language?
Yeah, so in terms of the terminology, I can point you to the definitions that are in the agenda item in relationship to the regulations under supervised field experience. And so that is the definition of that means instruction performed in a child care and development program for college credit, which is supervised by a person approved by a regionally accredited institution of higher education. So it's supervised by that institutional representative and they also will be defining like who is that on-site supervisor too as well. And so the difference in terminology or the technical terminology that we're using is supervised clinical field experience. It's used within early education programs to describe practicum-based field-oriented learning with clinical practice. That is a term that is aligned with the structure and expectations of educator preparation programs for multiple subject teacher credentialing. So the Commission appreciates the opportunity to clarify the distinction in relationship to that to ensure that the regulatory language is clear and understandable. So it's kind of a little bit of a combo technical term that we're using to support, that, again, that linkage to multiple subject credential, but yet looking at that field based or practicum based experience, which practicum is used in a regular.
I think the other one was something about a mentor and whether or not they have to have a BA.
That's a little bit more of a complex issue, and it's something that we've been actively working and meeting with the Department of Social Services, who they are the group that covers over the mentor program. And so we've been working with them on that. There's also, there's been some great feedback that's important to note. So sometimes we receive feedback related to this work that is outside of our purview. So there need to be other groups, other systems that take some action related to this in terms of that mentoring piece. But there's parts of it that we really can't be touching because it's not within the purview.
That's helpful.
Yes. So, but we are watching it from both sides and meeting with the different groups to make sure that those voices are being represented to the other groups that will have the opportunity to potentially make some motion in that space.
Thank you.
Was there anything more you wanted to add to that? No? Okay.
Commissioner Simpson.
Every time these items come up, I
Simmons.
ask the same question. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I said Simpson. Simpson was the last one. Simmons.
Every time I ask the same question, which and actually Aaron Sullivan brought it up this morning, is that we have for several years tried to create bridging documents. So where are we in terms of bridging from a multiple subject to a child development permit? What would be the process? Are we to the point yet to do that? Or are we?
Aaron, do you want to speak on that? Are you going to take CDP? Oh, sorry. Try to get this out.
No, so it would be very helpful if we could start by getting the regulations passed and then work on a bridging option because they have shifted around a little bit. And as we pull it out and so, I mean, we are certainly thinking about it, specifically PK3 more than the child development permit. We have been, asked to start to evaluate how someone might bridge from PK3 to multiple subject. That's a much, don't quote me on this, a much simpler bridge to make than from a child development permit to a multiple subject credential. But it's not in this regulatory package. We've been with us for a very long time. We've been trying for so long just to get the new child development permit sort of brought up to date and get these regs passed, but it's absolutely on our mind.
And there will be an upcoming agenda item that's specifically focusing on pathways. So there is an anticipated item related to that. And within the child development permit work group, those pathways, those conversations happen then. So there's a lot of documentation that's already related to those pathways in terms of the work group and what they thought should have movement and what possibly shouldn't have movement.
Yeah, under the direction also of the work group, and some of those conversations that took place, the work group really felt it was important for one of those levels, which is the early childhood educator 3, that it requires a bachelor's degree, which is a perfect segue into a PK3 credential. So there's a lot of discussion around that. And so part of that is really looking at some of the elements within that ECE3 that would be a great starting point and then stepped into that specific credential.
Executive Director Sandy has some.
I just wanted to add something a little bit to this, and that is and I think, Deborah, you just alluded to the point I wanted to reinforce, which is that the way in which this current child development permit proposal has been structured is to make sure that people who earn it don't get themselves off track if a multiple or a PK3 credential is their goal, so that everything they do in this career ladder matrix can be additive toward that if they want it, but not required to move toward it if they don't want it. But so alignment here, I think, was one of the design principles that the work group had in mind as they were looking at how to build these things. The current child development permit matrix allows a mentor with 24 units. Someone with 24 units to serve as a mentor, and recognizes a BA as an alternative. I think it does. I'm looking at it. I may be wrong on that.
Yes.
Looking at me like
yes.
So on the Commission on Teacher Credential. Back it or take it down. Anyway, I think this has been an area, we've had this discussion over the last couple of years a few times about what should be required for mentoring. And this is where you've landed previously on this, and the field is asking for other consideration. And I think when these regs go up, if the 45-day public comment period could give opportunity for you to revisit this as we move the regs forward. So.
Commissioner Brown.
Just to underscore that, what we just talked about is descriptive of the challenge of wanting to professionalize the preparation and execution of working with young children. And at the same time, what this kind of complicates things is that the programs for children need to have someone leading the classroom who knows what they're doing and also can mentor other people who are entering the field. The student teachers in community colleges generally only need to do up to 100 hours in their clinical field experience. A multiple subject person needs 600. That's a big gap. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but one of the things to consider is making sure that people who are getting that early experience in community colleges, and they may want to get a bachelor's degree and get a credential, also have the opportunity of being mentored by someone who knows what they're doing and does it well. We want to be careful that we don't raise the standards that we leave everybody out, including people in community colleges who need to go into a program for young children and learn how to teach well, at least that much. So that's, it's kind of looking back and forth. That's why I think both the comments that were made today and also everything that you've been doing to bring the field in, it does complicate it, but it also doesn't leave out important aspects that need to be addressed. If we could have someone who gets 24 units and is able to lead people to student teach at the community college level, if they no longer can do that, they can't do it until they have a bachelor's degree, we push away all kinds of people who could mentor people to start their work in the community college level to become teachers. That's not what we're intending. So it's a perfect example of why you're saying what amazing things you've done and the next step you want to take.
Can I just correct the record for just a minute? It's more than 24 units, but it's not a BA. It's 48. I just added them all up.
It is.
24 in early childhood, 2 in adult supervision,
Right.
16 in GE. That's what it says. So it's 48, but it's not a BA currently. And anybody that holds that will continue to be authorized to mentor for the rest of their career. So they are going to have to shift.
Or do, but they will be getting older and leaving.
Well,
Let's remember that.
Well, we all
don't want to set up a system that in 10 years, you're set. Yeah. Everybody that qualified for that is gone and now is.
There's also a nice transition period within the agenda item that will give those people, once regulations go through, an opportunity to say, do I now move right away to this new permit structure, or I have a little bit more time to figure out if I want to advance on this current structure. So there's a nice overlap there that we're hoping that the field will benefit from that.
Okay, friends, this is an action item. And I think it would be helpful if we recognize that we have 2 distinct actions in front of us and we could take them separately. So first, do I have a motion that the commission consider the recommended changes made in the proposed regulations and, if appropriate, approve proposed amendments to Title V of the California Code of Regulations to the Child Development Permit? Moved by Commissioner Redfern. A second, Commissioner Mancias, beat you out by a second, Commissioner Simpson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown.
Aye.
Shire. Aquino Shire.
Aye, sorry.
Raleigh,
Aye.
Mencius,
Aye.
Mandy Redfern,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Richard Simpson,
Aye.
Mike Torres,
Aye.
Fang Yuzoff,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, yay us. Second, do I have a motion for the commission to take action to rescind the current regulations package and direct staff to submit a new regulatory package that includes the amendments to the approved regulations as well as the newly proposed regulation sections to the Office of Administrative Law to continue the regulatory process? Commissioner Simpson, seconded by Commissioner Redfern. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Same thing. Aye, nay, or abstain, please.
Annette Brown,
Aye.
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
Makita Gwinnett Shire,
Aye.
Ira Lit,
Aye.
Mencius,
Aye.
Mandy Redfern,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Richard Simpson,
Aye.
Mike Torres,
Aye.
Fang Yuzoff,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Marshall, Ms. Keeler, and Ms. Kennedy. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, just for everyone in the room, we're going to get through item 4C and then take our lunch break. So just in case your tummies are rumbling, you know what to anticipate. Item 4C is proposed standardized subject matter requirement domain language. This item is being presented by Juliet Walleitner. This is an information action item. Dr. Walleitner, will you please begin when you're ready?
Right, here we go. Good morning, commissioners. That's my pleasure to be here with you this morning to present item 4C, proposed standardized subject matter domain language. To kick off this presentation, I want to begin with some background knowledge or background information. You heard the Fisher Act alluded to earlier this morning, and I want to bring it up again. So the Fisher Act, passed in 1960, is what led to our current post-baccalaureate credential structure. The idea was that people interested in going into teaching would first have that undergraduate opportunity to develop their subject matter competency. They would then go on to do the post-baccalaureate credential. And during that time, they would develop their pedagogical knowledge for that subject matter. So that pedagogical content knowledge. And together, that would make up the knowledge that they need for teaching. So it was that credential structure that led to the requirement for subject the subject matter requirement. The idea that all candidates must demonstrate subject matter competency, that knowledge that they would develop as undergraduates, by meeting the subject matter requirement prior to beginning a credential. So traditionally, there were two options for that. They could pass the CSET exams associated with the credential they were pursuing, or they could complete an approved subject matter program. As we have discussed in the past, AB 130, passed in 2021, created some new options. Those options included completion of a degree aligned to the credential area the individual is pursuing, completion of coursework aligned with the subject matter requirement domains, or a combination of passage of the CSET and coursework. And as well-intentioned as AB 130 was, as we've discussed, it came with some unintended consequences. Primary among those are that the existing subject matter requirement domain descriptions were developed as test specifications for the CSET, not intended to be used for transcript evaluation. Spoke for you in April about some of the challenges that created for programs when they were attempting to use those descriptions to evaluate candidates' coursework for meeting the subject matter requirement through completion of coursework. So in April, brought before you
standardized, streamlined subject matter requirement domain descriptions. So that was took those domain descriptions, standardized the format across credential areas, tried to streamline the content, shared those with you. You all provided feedback, and you directed us to then solicit feedback from the field on those standardized domain descriptions and to make further revisions. So I'm here today to share with you what those opportunities for feedback look like, some of the feedback we received, and the revisions that were made as a result. So field engagement. We created two opportunities for members of the field to provide their feedback with us. The first was a survey of preparation program representatives. And the second was we set up transcript evaluation workshops to allow people to try using those standardized streamlined domain descriptions to evaluate transcripts. First, talk about the survey. So again, the purpose of the survey was to solicit feedback from programs on those standardized descriptions. The survey included 5 background items: name, email, preparation program, role, whether or not the responder was currently evaluating transcripts. Then the responder had the option to they had the option to first provide general feedback on all standardized domain descriptions, or to provide feedback on one or more credential areas. And I suppose they could have provided general feedback on all and specific feedback on credential areas. But when they were providing that feedback, they were asked basically 4 questions. First off, what's their overall satisfaction with these standardized domain descriptions? What's the usability of the standardized domain descriptions? Did they see, and those were both on Likert scales, and then open-ended items to ask about any challenges they saw, and then any suggestions they had for further revision. The survey was open from May 1st to 31st. It went out through an email to preparation program leaders. There was also listed in our Educator Quality Branch weekly newsletter, so just saying it was open and available for response. So in total, we received 75 responses, and you can see that those came from the range of sectors that prepare teachers. In total, 63 educator preparation programs were represented. And there you can see the range of roles. We had program directors, credential analysts, faculty, and then a smattering of other roles that were identified. And this provides an overview of the feedback that we received to those first 2 items, the overall satisfaction and overall usability. Again, those were Likert scales ranging from 1, very unsatisfied, to 6, very satisfied. And then for usability, 1, very unusable, to 6, very usable. You'll see that not all credential areas are listed there. That's because we didn't receive responses to all credential areas. So those are the responses that we received. In general, the responders found the standardized streamlined domains to be at least somewhat usable, and they were at least somewhat satisfied. You'll see that we dipped on the negative side for music and for PE in terms of overall satisfaction. I have a little bit more to share with you about that. And then in terms of usability, music, PE, and social science. So some of the feedback we received. A general feedback was that the condensed domains help with not having a full paragraph to scope through and ensure the class meets every topic covered in a given domain. If you recall, some of that language in those original descriptions was really dense and just really posed a problem. And then I found this single subject PE response to be enlightening. It said that as written, they appear to emphasize primarily content knowledge in physical education with little or no explicit attention to pedagogical knowledge or pedagogical content knowledge. Well, if you remember back to that first slide I showed, the purpose of measuring subject matter competency or evaluating subject matter competency is really to focus on content knowledge. It's not to focus on the pedagogical content knowledge, because that comes after they've demonstrated their subject matter competence. All right, so shift now to talk about the transcript evaluation workshops. And these were really fun. Just put that little side note out there. The purpose of these was to provide program representatives with the opportunity to try using those standardized domains to evaluate transcripts, and then for us to collect feedback on those processes. So we held 2 90-minute workshops over Zoom. These were right towards the end of May. The structure of those 90 minutes was we did 20 minutes of introductions with an overview, some background on why we were there, what the purpose was. And then participants were put into breakout rooms depending on the credential area that they wanted to try evaluating transcripts for. So in both sessions, we had multiple breakout rooms focused on multiple subject. We had PE represented, we had math represented, social science, several others, an art group. Then everybody was brought back together to a main room for just a discussion of the process. What did they have to share? And then I also wanted to add that each breakout room was given a Google Doc where they could record notes during that process, just kind of overall reactions, suggestions. So in terms of who was invited to these transcript evaluation workshops, if you recall, when I was here in April, I shared with you about a survey that we administered in January to learn more about the processes programs were using for doing this transcript evaluation. So everybody who responded to that survey was invited to participate in one of these workshops. So that was 97 individuals. So of those 97, 36 participated in a workshop. I will say that we actually had some people who came on Monday and really enjoyed it and came back on Thursday. Or whatever days they were. But again, we had representation from all of the different sectors, and again, faculty, credential analysts, program coordinators. So broad representation. For the feedback we received here from multiple subject, said having more plain language makes it easier for candidates to self-evaluate. I thought that was an interesting perspective to take on the perspective of candidates using these. They also said having only one domain with your subdomains makes it easier. Some concerns. A big concern was that for multiple subject, there were still 23 domains that remained, and they saw possible overlap with the content listed in those domains and the content that's required to be covered in a credential program. They also noted there were multiple places where lists of content, lists of content that needed to be covered was included, and they suggested using or in those lists rather than and. So giving some options within that domain. And then there was the comment that the domains still don't exactly match what you would see in a course description. For single subject, there were specific comments on credential areas. So for math, there was a suggestion about shifting the placement of where calculus occurred within the domains. And then there was with PE, there was concerns about the amount of content that was required. And then overall, there was a concern with that some credential areas had as few as 4 domains, whereas others had as many as 8 or 9. So based on that feedback, we made some proposed revisions. And I just want to remind you all that you have all of the revised domains in the appendix to this item, but just a high level of some of those revisions that are being proposed. For multiple subject, first off, including some general guidance for meeting the domains that lower division and upper division non-remedial coursework taken pre or post degree can be used. And that successful completion of a corresponding AP, CLEP, or IB exam would fulfill the domain. We also did do some consolidating based on that feedback, taking the 23 domains down to 18, really looking carefully for where there was overlap. So an example of what that looked like among the math domains, number sense, mathematical structures were there, but that was prerequisite content for some of the other domains. So taking those out, but keeping the more advanced knowledge in those upper domains. And then and or was added specifically in 2 areas. And that was in PE and the visual and performing arts domains. For single subject, adding some general guidance for meeting the domains that one upper division course would be required per domain, except where noted. And this is really because of some of those areas where there were just 4 domains, and saying that, if one course could meet multiple domains, that meant somebody could meet that subject matter requirement with just a couple courses. And then for some of the other areas where there were multiple domains, consolidating domains where overlap. So with that, recommendation is that you approve the revised standardized domain descriptions for use in evaluating transcripts. And if approved, then we'll return with draft regulations of this language and also propose recommendations for how these updated descriptions can be used to inform future subject matter exams.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There's no public comment.
Okay. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Simmons?
How does advanced placement fit in this?
So the idea is that if you've taken so this would be for the multiple subject level. If you've taken an AP exam for calculus, that would count for any requirement that lists calculus. So it wouldn't be that you would have needed to take a calculus course post-baccalaureate for that, or not, not post-baccalaureate, I'm sorry, at the college level to meet that.
You said for the multiple subject? What about for single subject math? You did calculus BC and you have an upper division stats course and we need the requirement?
We don't have that language in there, but that I can certainly see your argument. And I see Erin coming to the table. She's going to help me out.
I think that when a high school student passes that AP exam, typically it results in college credit on their transcript. And so as long as the transcript indicates the subject area that the exam was in, then they should have units associated with that. So therefore it should meet the requirements of the transcript evaluation for that course.
So as a math teacher, because this is what everybody reads these, they always look at their own credential area first.
Of course.
As a math teacher, what basically I would need to complete the calculus sequence and one upper division, and which is lower division. So I would have those 2 or 3 courses semester or quarter. And I would add to that 1 upper division stats course. Does the statistics course need to be from the mathematics department or could it be from another area? So for instance, let's say I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry and I had to complete the calculus sequence for that major. And then I go and I get a master's degree in education with an upper division stats course or actually a graduate level stats course. Would that allow me to be a math teacher?
I believe it would, because the course description is what gets used.
Okay, this is where as a sort of academic, it's pain. I think it actually makes sense. So I like your structure. Well, actually, I don't like the structure, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take it.
Any other commissioners have comments or questions? Commissioner Cardenas.
I have a follow-up. Just some colleges and universities don't accept AP exams in that subject matter. Like they'll put it like an elective, but give them units. Does that have any impact?
Wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't.
Because you'd still have that, be able to demonstrate that you passed.
And is that hold true also for maybe if a student takes a CLEP exam or takes, so that would hold true as well?
Yeah.
Commissioner Redfern?
During our April meeting, there were several public comments regarding dance. Can you address what changes were made and did we address those concerns?
That is a good question. I'm trying to remember the actual concerns about dance.
The specific types of dance they needed to.
Right, for the single subject
Yes.
dance credential.
They were saying that those are no longer culturally appropriate.
Thank you for that reminder.
I would have to go back
Okay.
and check those notes.
That would be great.
Do any other commissioners have questions or comments? Well, this is an information action item. Do I have a motion that the commission approve the revised standardized subject matter requirement domains for use in evaluating transcripts to determine if a candidate has demonstrated subject matter competency and to inform the adoption of future subject matter assessments? Excellent. Commissioner Simmons has made the motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Mancias is the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will there? Oh, yes, Commissioner Torres.
Just for my own understanding, this is subject matter competence that I've taken math and I understand math. It's not necessarily that I understand how to teach math.
Absolutely not. That happens at the credential.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is all prior to the credential.
Thank you. Sorry for the last second.
Discussion appropriate.
Appreciate it.
Okay, are there any other discussion? Yes.
May I just clarify, the issue that you brought up, Commissioner Redfern, regarding the conversation around dance, at the previous meeting, I believe that conversation was related to the supplementary and subject matter, authorization regulations, which require very specific coursework, and it was around jazz dance versus the history of dance. And so, while related tangentially, it's not technically, that wasn't a discussion about the subject matter. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner
I just want to
Francois.
quickly acknowledge how hard this is and the amount of work that it took to streamline, but also ensure that all of the content for each one of those subject areas, particularly for multiple subject candidates, there's a solid foundation before you get into teacher preparation. And I really, really appreciate that. I will also acknowledge the UC has given you a very hard time.
I know, lots of people are.
And you have been incredibly responsive, so thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Okay, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Brown.
Aye.
Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Laguna Shire.
Aye.
Bellet.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Mandy Redfern.
Aye.
David Simpson.
Aye.
Richardson. Sidney Simmons.
Aye.
Richard Simpson.
Aye.
Mike Torres.
Aye.
Paul Newsall.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Walleitner, for your work. And I would like to recess for lunch and have everybody reconvene at 12:30.